Story 1. My brother framed me for drug dealing. My parents took his side, saying, he can't risk his career. A record won't hurt you. So I took brutal revenge. Sup Reddit. So my brother tried to frame me for drugs to save himself. And my parents told me to be the bigger person and take the fall because a record won't hurt you. They had no idea what I was going to do next. I can 31 male. Work as a cell tower technician. The guys who climb those 400-foot towers you see along highways. Good money, stupid hours, and one ironclad rule. If you pop hot on a random drug test, you're gone. No second chances. No appeals. Just gone. Look, I'm not saying I'm a saint, but I am saying that when you work a job where one dirty test means you're unemployed, homeless, and blacklisted from an entire industry, you tend to stay squeaky clean. Like the hardest thing in my system is pre-workout and the occasional energy drink when I'm pulling doubles. My brother was 27, had a finance degree, worked as a junior analyst, and spent most of his energy pretending he was already a managing director. Recently got engaged to this girl who posted pictures of her morning smoothies like she was curing cancer. My parents treated him like he'd personally invented money. Me? I was the spare. The weird one who didn't want a cubicle. The one doing fine. But it's just manual labor, you know? Everything imploded on a Wednesday morning at 5 a.m. I was at the staging yard in Nebraska, loading climbing gear into a company truck. I was checking carabiners when my site supervisor walked over. Guy named Valdez, former Marine, carried his clipboard like a weapon. His face told me everything before he opened his mouth. Need you in the office trailer. Now. I stood up. What's going on? Compliance wants to talk to you. My stomach dropped. The office trailer had a speakerphone on the table. Valdez closed the door. The voice on the speaker was corporate, female, professional. Good morning. This is Corporate Safety and Compliance. I'm calling regarding an incident report filed through our anonymous safety hotline on Monday evening at approximately 10:34 p.m. Okay, I said. What incident? The report alleges observation of impaired behavior during safety-critical work activities, slurred speech, poor motor control, erratic judgment during your last tower climb. The words landed cold. What? Company policy requires immediate action on any reasonable suspicion report involving substance use. You'll be transported to a certified testing facility within the hour for a comprehensive drug screen. You're being placed on unpaid administrative leave pending results. I didn't smoke. Didn't pop pills. The closest I came to drugs was ibuprofen for my shoulders and knees, but none of that mattered. In my world, accusation was guilt until a plastic cup said otherwise. She kept talking. You'll remain on unpaid leave pending test results. Your site credentials will be suspended. A company representative will transport you to the testing facility. Questions? Yeah. Who made the report? Slight pause. That information is confidential to protect the integrity of our safety reporting system. So it's anonymous. We take all safety concerns seriously regardless of source. Valdez spoke. I've worked with him for 3 years. Never seen anything close to this. Her response was smooth. We appreciate that feedback. But policy is policy. Corporate treats hotline reports on safety-critical roles as reasonable suspicion. Your supervisor completed the documentation checklist this morning. Valdez's jaw tightened. He'd had to tick boxes on a form, knowing it was nonsense, then send it up the chain anyway. She wrapped up. The line went dead. Valdez looked like he wanted to put his fist through the wall. This is ridiculous. Yeah. You clean? Completely. He nodded. Then the test will clear you. Just sit tight. 30 minutes later, some kid showed up wearing a company windbreaker. He had a clipboard and nervous energy. The kid drove me 45 minutes to an occupational health clinic in silence. I was doing math in my head. I was on a project paying $68 an hour base, plus $110 per diem. I worked 6/12s, 72 hours a week. With overtime, I was clearing about $6,600 a week before taxes. One anonymous phone call had just cost me a minimum of a week's pay. Maybe my whole position on this crew. The clinic did the standard drill. The nurse walked me through the process. I asked for copies of everything. She raised an eyebrow, but printed them anyway. They sealed the sample, labeled it, and documented everything. Results in 3 to 5 business days, the nurse said. The kid drove me back to the motel where the crew was staying. Didn't say a word. Just dropped me off and left. It was 11:20 a.m. I'd been up since 4:30. I was officially benched until further notice. I sat on the motel bed and pulled out my phone. 23 missed calls. 8 from my mom, 6 from dad, and 9 from my brother. Texts, too. Most were, call me back, and we need to talk, and are you okay? But one stood out. From mom. Please answer. It's not what you think. We can explain. I stared at the screen. We can explain. Which meant they already knew what happened. Here's what I knew. Monday night, 2 days before the test, my brother had shown up at my apartment unannounced. Around 9 p.m., looking stressed. He wanted to borrow my truck. Just need to move some stuff for her bridal shower, he'd said. I'd told him no. My truck was a 2018 Silverado, and the bed had $15,000 worth of climbing gear and equipment. I didn't lend it out. Ever. He'd looked wounded. Seriously, I'm your brother. And it's my truck. Rent a U-Haul. He'd shifted tactics. Can I at least hang out for a bit? She's having one of her moments. I need space. I'd been exhausted. I had a 4 a.m. departure. Fine, I'm going to bed. Lock the door when you leave. He'd sat on my couch scrolling his phone. I'd showered, crashed. When I left for work at 3:45 a.m., he was gone. Door locked. No note. I hadn't thought about it. Now? I was thinking about it real hard. Because my truck had been in the parking lot. Unlocked, because it was a gated complex. Alone with my brother for hours. I pulled up my texts and scrolled back. 3 weeks ago, he'd asked me about my drug testing schedule. How often do they actually test you? Like, is it actually random or is it on a schedule? I'd said, random means random, dumbass. That's the whole point. He'd laughed. Just wondering how they keep track of everyone. That conversation sat different now. I stared at my phone, and the rage started building. My phone buzzed. Mom again. I answered. She was already crying. Baby, are you okay? We heard what happened. How'd you hear? Your brother told us. He's so worried about you. Of course he was. Mom, I'm fine. I didn't do anything. We know, sweetheart. We know you didn't. We just want to help. Help with what? Longer pause. Come to dinner tonight. We need to talk about this as a family. She hung up before I could argue. My parents lived in one of those cookie-cutter suburbs. Beige everything. HOA-mandated lawn maintenance. My brother's BMW was in the driveway. Dad's Lexus, too. I walked in. Nobody said hi. Mom was in the kitchen stress-cleaning counters that were already clean. Dad was at the dining table with a yellow legal pad and his reading glasses. Polo shirt, slacks, problem-solver mode. My brother was on the couch, hunched over his phone, no eye contact. I stood in the doorway. All right, let's hear it. Dad looked up. Sit down. I'm good standing. He gave me that look. This is serious. Sit. I pulled out a chair. Saturday, crossed my arms. Mom turned around. Her eyes were red. She was wearing an apron even though there was no food cooking. Honey, she started, voice shaking, we need to discuss what happened. You mean the part where I got yanked off a job site and forced to take a drug test because someone filed a bogus report? That part? Dad jumped in. We know you're upset. I'm not upset, Dad. I'm unemployed without pay. There's a difference. You're on leave pending results. That's not unemployed. Same thing when you're not getting a paycheck. He waved that off. The test will clear you. That's not what we're worried about. Then what are we worried about? Heavy silence. Mom sat down across from me, folded her hands. We're worried about your brother. I laughed. Not a fun laugh. Of course you are. Dad leaned forward. He made a mistake. A serious one. But it's fixable if we handle it correctly. What mistake? More silence. Mom looked at Dad. Dad looked at my brother. Finally, Mom spoke, voice barely above a whisper. He was holding something for a friend. He panicked. He needed somewhere the cops wouldn't look if things went sideways. The words landed. So he put it in my truck. Nobody denied it. I leaned back. Let me make sure I understand this correctly. He had drugs. He was worried about getting caught. He decided the safest place to hide them was in my truck. The truck I use for work. The truck that goes through federal facility checkpoints. The truck that's part of a career with mandatory random drug testing. And then he called in a tip to get me pulled off site, probably hoping I'd get searched or the company would send security to check my vehicle. Mom was crying now. He didn't think. No kidding, he didn't think it through. Dad's voice went sharp. Watch your tone. Or what? You'll frame me harder? Nobody framed you, Dad said. I looked at my brother directly. Did you make the call? He didn't answer. Did you file the report to my company? He finally looked up. His eyes were wet. I didn't think they'd actually test you, he said, voice cracking. I thought it would just go into some system and disappear. You thought wrong. Mom reached across the table. I pulled back. He made a mistake, she said. A terrible mistake. But he's your brother. He tried to frame me. Dad shook his head. If the investigation continues, if they start asking questions about the origin of that tip, it could trace back to him. He has a career. He's engaged. He has a future that can't afford complications. And I don't? Dad didn't hesitate. Your job is physical labor. You'll find another tower to climb. He's building a professional career. He's in finance. One mark on his record, and everything he's worked for disappears. There it was. Mom jumped in. Her parents are old money. They have standards. If this comes out before the wedding, they'll pull their support. We co-signed on his condo. If he loses his job, we lose the property. They weren't just protecting my brother. They were protecting their investment. So, what are you asking me to do? Dad pulled off his reading glasses, rubbed his eyes. We're asking you to take responsibility. I laughed. Responsibility for what? I didn't do anything. We know that. But if you say you did, if you tell your company the drugs were yours and it was a personal issue, then this ends. The company processes it as a policy violation, you move on to a different job, and he stays clean. You want me to confess to a crime I didn't commit. It's not a crime if there's no legal proceeding, Dad said. It's just an employment matter. Mom was sobbing. We're not asking you to go to jail. Just tell your company it was a mistake. Take the employment hit. Then we all move on. And he walks away clean. He gets a second chance, Dad corrected. I stood up. Chair scraped loud. No, Mom blinked. What? No, I'm not doing it. Dad stood too. You're being selfish. I'm being selfish? I'm the one who got set up. You're his brother. And he tried to frame me. My brother finally spoke, voice small. Why are you being like this? I said I'm sorry. I turned to him. He wasn't sorry. He was scared. You're sorry you got caught. You're not sorry you did it. Mom stood up. Enough, both of you. She looked at me. Please, she said, voice breaking. Please just do this for us. For your brother. Be the bigger person. The bigger person? You've always been the resilient one. The one who handles things. He needs you. He needs consequences. Dad's voice dropped. If you don't help him, we'll have to find another solution. Good luck with that. I turned to leave. Mom grabbed my arm. Where are you going? Anywhere but here. We're not finished talking. I pulled free. Yeah, we are. My brother's voice followed me. You're really going to let them ruin my life? I stopped at the door, turned back. I'm not letting anyone do anything. You ruined your own life. I'm just refusing to take the blame for it. Dad's voice sharp. You walk out that door, you're on your own. I stopped, hand on the doorknob. I've always been on my own, Dad. You just didn't notice because I never asked you for anything. I left. Behind me, Mom started wailing. Dad was saying something about stubborn and ungrateful. My brother was crying, asking what he was supposed to do now. I didn't have an answer for him. That was his problem. The first thing I did after leaving that family ambush was call a lawyer. Not HR, not a friend. A criminal defense attorney. Found one through a quick search. His voicemail said he handled drug cases and false accusations. Bingo. I left a message. He called back 20 minutes later. You retained yet? Not officially. Then let's keep this general until you sign the paperwork. What happened? So I walked him through it. The failed test. My brother showing up Monday night with his sob story. The family meeting where they all ganged up on me. The whole, just take the fall for your brother pitch. He didn't interrupt once. When I finished, dead silence for maybe 3 seconds. All right, if you want me on this, sign the retainer I'm sending tonight. Until then, here's what you do. Don't talk to your family. Don't drive that truck. Screenshot anything they send you. And when the cops show up, when, not if, you say one sentence, I want my attorney present. Not, I think I need a lawyer. Not, maybe I should call someone. Those exact words. Then you shut up and call me, got it? Got it. Good. Sign that retainer. We're getting ahead of this before your idiot brother makes it worse. Signed it an hour later. $2.5 grand just to get started, but honestly, best money I ever spent. Because Wednesday night, same dang night as the family meeting, someone knocked on my motel room door. Looked through the peephole. 2 cops in uniform. One of them had his hand hovering near his belt like he expected trouble. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. I opened the door halfway and stepped outside. Pulled it shut behind me. Evening. The older one spoke first. Stocky guy, late 40s, mustache that screamed, I peaked in high school football. You my name? Yeah. Got a call that you've been keeping controlled substances in a white Silverado. Work truck registered to a telecommunications company. Mind if we ask you a few questions? I want my attorney present for any questioning. The older cop's eyebrows shot up. His partner, younger guy, clean cut, shifted like I'd just said something in a foreign language. You're not under arrest, the older one said, voice all friendly now. We're just following up on a tip. I stood there, said nothing. Look, the older one tried again. If you've got nothing to hide, this'll take 2 minutes. Just want to make sure everything's cool here. Still nothing from me. The younger cop stepped in. We understand you drive a work truck. That the white Silverado in the lot? Didn't answer. Mind if we take a quick look in your truck? He asked it like he was asking to borrow a lighter. No. The older cop cocked his head. No, we can't look, or no, you don't mind. I don't consent to any searches. The younger cop shot the older one a look. His jaw tightened. Sir, if you're not involved in anything illegal, there's no reason to refuse. I'm not answering questions without my attorney. The older cop let out this long breath through his nose. Annoyed. Good. All right, don't leave the area. He caught himself. We'd appreciate if you stay available in case we need to follow up. Am I being detained? No. Cool. Going back inside then. Opened the door, stepped through, closed it. Locked it. Stood there with my back pressed against the door, heart hammering like I'd just run a marathon. Tried to remember their badge numbers. Couldn't. Too focused on keeping my voice steady and not saying the wrong thing. Got a look at the older one's nameplate, but the porch light was garbage. Didn't matter. I had the time, the description, what they said. Could hear them outside talking. Couldn't make out the words, but the vibe was definitely irritated. About a minute later, footsteps walking away. I pulled out my phone and called my lawyer. Rang 4 times. They already came? He answered. Yep, 2 uniforms. Said they got a call about drug activity. Asked to search my truck. I said no. Told them I wanted my attorney present. They bounced. Perfect. You did everything exactly right. Did they say who tipped them off? Nah, but we both know it was my brother. Probably. Doesn't matter though. What matters is you didn't give them squat. No consent, no statements, no explaining yourself. They'll either come back with a warrant or they won't. If they do, we handle it then. So what now? Same as before. Don't talk to your family. Don't drive that truck. Document everything. I'm sending you a form. Write down everything that just went down. Time, names, badge numbers if you caught them. Exactly what they said. Exactly what you said. Email it to me tonight. All right. And listen, your brother just took this from a family mess to attempted criminal framing. That's a huge escalation. He's panicking, and panicked people do really dumb things. We're gonna stay ahead of it, but you gotta stay sharp. No heroics, no confrontations, just do what I tell you. Will do. Good. Send me that write-up. I'll hit you up tomorrow. Click. Sat down on the bed and started typing. Time, 8:47 p.m. 2 uniforms, 1 older, 1 younger. What they said, what I said. Everything. Finished and emailed it. Police contact, Wednesday 8:47 p.m. Then just sat there in the dark, phone in my hand. My brother wasn't just trying to save himself anymore. He was trying to burn me. And he was sloppy about it. Called the cops before he had his story straight. Gave them just enough to send uniforms, but not enough for a warrant. Sloppy and strategic. The worst combo. But he didn't count on one thing. I didn't panic. Didn't let them in. Didn't explain. Didn't hand over anything. Did exactly what my lawyer told me to. And now I had documentation. A paper trail. A criminal defense attorney already 10 steps ahead. My brother wanted to play this game? Fine. But we weren't playing on his terms anymore. Tuesday morning, my company's lab results came back. HR called. Same woman from before. Your test results are negative across all panels. You're cleared for immediate return to duty. When's the next rotation? Valdez's crew has a Montana site starting Monday. You're back on the roster. What about the report? It's been classified as unfounded. No disciplinary action on your record. She paused. I'm also required to inform you that retaliation against anyone who files a safety report, even an unfounded one, is a violation of company policy and grounds for immediate termination. There it was, the legal CYA. Understood. I wasn't planning retaliation, I was planning documentation. Big difference. Your credentials will be reactivated by the end of business Thursday. You'll have full access by Monday morning. Thanks. She hung up. Crisis over. Mostly. I sat there for maybe 10 minutes, staring at my phone. Clean test results. Job secured. Record clean. My brother had tried to destroy me and failed, but he was still out there, still dealing, still using my truck as his stash spot for all I knew. I pulled up the non-emergency number for the local police. Hit call. Police department, how can I help you? I need to report drug possession. I have specific information about someone who may be transporting controlled substances. Okay, what's your name? I gave it to her. And your callback number? This one. Who are you reporting? My brother. What makes you believe he has controlled substances? He admitted to me he's been stashing drugs in my vehicle without my knowledge. He also admitted he made an anonymous report to my employer to get me drug tested when things got hot. There was typing on her end. Do you know what he drives? Silver Audi A4. I have the plate number. Go ahead with the plate. I rattled it off. She made me repeat it. Do you know where he is right now? I'm not with him. I'm at my apartment. But he usually leaves his condo around this time and heads downtown to his office. Route 7 is his normal way in. Have you seen drugs in his car or on his person? No. I'm going off what he told me. I'm calling because he tried to push this onto me and I want it documented. Okay, we'll have an officer follow up. If we need a formal statement, someone will contact you. Stay available at this number. All right, she hung up. I didn't know if that went anywhere or if it just got filed into some black hole. 2 hours later, my phone rang. Unknown number. This is Officer Martinez with the police department. Am I speaking with the person who called about your brother? Yeah. All right. We located a silver Audi matching the plate you provided. We conducted a traffic stop near the downtown exit after observing a moving violation. My stomach tightened. During contact, the driver showed signs consistent with impairment. We requested a K9 unit. The dog alerted on the vehicle. I didn't say anything. Didn't trust my voice. We located suspected controlled substances inside the vehicle, along with items consistent with distribution. He was arrested and transported for booking. Okay. Because of the impairment indicators, we're also requesting a blood draw as part of the DUI drug process. You may be contacted by a prosecutor or an officer for a statement, since your information helped initiate the contact. Got it. One more thing. Don't let anyone pressure you to change your story or not cooperate. If they do, document it and call us. Understood. We appreciate the call. We hung up. I sat there on my couch, staring at nothing. The rage I'd been holding back finally broke through. Not explosive, quiet, cold. I opened a soda, sat on my balcony, watched the sun go down. Around 8 p.m., my phone started blowing up. I turned my phone face down and left it on the counter. 20 minutes later, someone was pounding on my apartment door. I looked through the peephole. Both of them. Mom and Dad. Mom's face was red and blotchy. Dad looked like he wanted to break the door down. I opened it. Dad pushed past me into the apartment before I could say anything. Mom followed, already crying. What the hell did you do? Dad's voice was shaking. Rage or panic, couldn't tell. I reported a crime. You called the cops on your own brother? I called the cops on someone who tried to frame me for drug possession. He just happens to be my brother. Mom grabbed my arm. They're saying he had controlled substances in his car. They're saying he's a dealer. This is insane. There has to be a mistake. There's no mistake. He told me himself. He's been dealing for months. Dad stepped closer. You need to fix this. No. Tell them it's yours. Tell them you asked him to hold it. Tell them anything. I stared at him. You want me to confess to a felony I didn't commit? We co-signed on his condo. If he gets convicted, we lose everything. That's not my problem. Mom's voice went high and desperate. Please, please, baby, you don't understand what this means. They're saying bail could be as high as $75,000. We'd need $7,500 just to get him out. We don't have that kind of money, Liquid. We need you to help us. I'm not bailing him out. He's your brother. He tried to destroy my career. Dad's face went red. You think you're better than him? I think not dealing drugs makes me smarter, yeah. We raised you better than this. You raised me to cover for people who screw me over? Because I missed that lesson. Mom was full-on sobbing now. We'll lose the condo. We'll lose everything. You don't understand. We put our retirement into that down payment. If he can't make the payments, the bank takes it. We're ruined. Then you made a bad investment. Dad grabbed my shoulder. Hard. You're going to help him. I shoved his hand off. Get out. We're not leaving until... Get out of my apartment. Mom tried one more time. At least talk to the police. Tell them he made a mistake. I'm telling them the truth. Dad's voice dropped low. If you testify against him, you're dead to us. Good. Makes it easier. He stared at me like he'd never seen me before. Then he turned and walked out. Mom stood there for another few seconds, mascara running down her face, looking at me like I'd just killed someone. I don't even know who you are anymore, she whispered. I'm the guy who doesn't take the fall for other people's nonsense. That's who I am. She left. I closed the door, locked it, put the chain on. Just felt done. Over the next 3 weeks, I systematically cut every financial tie I had to my parents. I removed them from my phone plan. They'd been on my family plan for 3 years. I'd been covering $160 a month without thinking about it. I stopped paying their home security system, $65 a month for the last 2 years. I canceled the streaming services they'd been using. All gone. The electric bill for their house that had somehow ended up in my name 3 years ago, when they temporarily needed help, I called the utility company and had it transferred back to them. I didn't announce any of this. I just stopped. And then I got contacted by the prosecutor's office. My brother's case was moving forward. They needed me to testify about the timeline, the access to my truck, the family meeting where they asked me to confess. I met with the assistant DA, told the truth, provided my documentation, the screenshots, the contemporaneous notes I'd written immediately after the family meeting, the independent test results, the call logs showing when I'd reported him. My brother's defense attorney tried to paint me as vindictive, as someone with a grudge against his successful younger brother. The prosecutor shut that down immediately, pointed to the drug tests, the timeline, the physical evidence from the traffic stop. His attorney tried a different angle during my deposition. Isn't it true you refused to help your brother when he made a mistake? I refused to confess to a crime I didn't commit. That's different. But you knew he was struggling. I knew he was dealing drugs and trying to frame me for it. Yeah, the attorney didn't have a response. 6 weeks later, my brother took a plea, avoided real prison time, but caught a felony, probation, and the kind of record that sticks like gum to a boot. His fiancée had left him the day he got arrested. Last I heard through the family grapevine, she was already engaged to some investment banker in Chicago. Someone without a felony record. My parents lost the condo. Without his income, they couldn't make the payments on the co-signed loan. The bank foreclosed. They had to take out a second mortgage on their own house to cover his legal bills. 3 months after my brother's sentencing, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. Unknown. This is your mother. I had to get a new phone because we couldn't afford the plan anymore. Please call me. We need to talk. I didn't respond. She called from that number. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. I deleted it without listening. 2 weeks later, my aunt called. The same aunt who told me I did the right thing. Your parents are in trouble, she said. Real trouble. Okay. They're behind on their mortgage. The second mortgage payments are killing them. Your dad's talking about declaring bankruptcy. That's unfortunate. They need help. They needed help 3 months ago. They chose my brother instead. My aunt sighed. I know what they did was wrong. They didn't just do something wrong. They asked me to confess to a felony to protect their investment. I know. And I told them they were out of their minds. But they're still your parents. Genetically, sure. Long pause. Your mom's been picking up extra shifts at the hospital. She's 62. She can barely stand after a full shift. Then she should have thought about that before asking me to destroy my career. I get it. I do. I just wanted you to know where things stand. Appreciate the update. We hung up. 4 months after that, they all showed up at my apartment. Not separately. Together. Like they'd planned it. I was home on a rare weekend off when the gate buzzer rang. Security. You have visitors. Your parents and your brother. I almost told security to turn them away. But then I thought about it. They drove all the way here. They coordinated schedules. This was going to be good. Let them through. 5 minutes later, there was a knock on my door. I opened it. All 3 of them standing there. Mom, Dad, my brother. Mom looked like she'd aged 10 years. Dad's Lexus was gone. They'd pulled up in some beat-up Honda Civic that had to be 15 years old. My brother looked thin, hollow, like someone who'd spent 6 months on probation, realizing nobody was hiring felons. Can we come in? Mom asked, voice already shaking. I stepped aside. They filed in. Nobody sat. This wasn't a social visit. Dad cleared his throat. We came to apologize. I leaned against the kitchen counter, crossed my arms. Okay, apologize? Mom started crying immediately. We're so sorry. What we asked you to do was wrong. We were scared. We weren't thinking clearly. You were thinking clearly. You knew exactly what you were asking me to do. Dad jumped in. We made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But we're your family. We're asking you to forgive us. Forgive you for what? For trying to ruin my career? For asking me to confess to a felony? Which part? My brother spoke for the first time. I know I messed up. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I've been through hell. I've had time to think about everything. I'm different now. You're different because you got caught. His face crumpled. That's not fair. You keep using that word. Nothing about this situation is fair. Mom stepped forward, reaching for my arm. I pulled back. Please, she said. We need your help. We're going to lose the house. The bank is threatening foreclosure. Your father's retirement fund is gone. We used it all for his legal bills and the condo payments. Sounds like you made some bad investments. Dad's jaw clenched. This isn't a joke. You're right. It's not. It's consequences. We're your parents. We raised you. We fed you. We put a roof over your head for 18 years. and I've been on my own ever since. Never asked you for a dime. Mom was sobbing now. We don't have anyone else to turn to. The bank won't work with us. We need around $47,000 to avoid foreclosure. We'll lose everything. You already lost everything. You just haven't accepted it yet. My brother moved closer. I'll pay you back, I swear. Once I'm back on my feet, you're a convicted felon with no job. You're not getting back on your feet. I'll find something. You'll find minimum wage work if you're lucky. And even that's going to be hard with a drug conviction. Dad's voice went cold. So that's it? You're just going to watch us lose our home? I'm living my life. You're the ones who showed up here. Mom grabbed my hand before I could pull away. Please, I'm begging you. We'll sign papers. We'll put it in writing. We'll pay you back with interest. You can't afford interest. You can't afford the principal. You're broke. She sat down right there on my floor, just collapsed into herself, crying. I looked down at her, then at Dad, who was staring at the wall, then at my brother, who looked like he wanted to disappear. Get up, Mom. She didn't move, just kept crying. Get up! She stood slowly, wiping her face with her hands. I walked to my desk, pulled out my checkbook. If they tried to spin this later, I wanted something in writing they couldn't twist. I wrote a check, put family assistance on the memo line, took a photo with my phone before I even ripped it out. I handed it to Mom. She looked at it. Her face went white. $1? That's my contribution to your situation. $1. Because you're right, you did raise me for 18 years. So here's $1 for your trouble. Now you can say I helped. Dad's face went red. You smug. Don't. You don't get to be angry. You came here begging and I gave you what I thought you deserved. $1. That's the value I place on people who tried to destroy my life to save their investment. Mom was staring at the check like it might change if she looked long enough. My brother's voice was quiet. We drove 4 hours to get here. Then you wasted 8 hours round trip. Dad stepped forward. You know what? We don't need your money. We'll figure it out ourselves. No, you won't. You've been riding his supposed success for years. You co-signed his condo because you wanted to brag about it. You paid his legal bills because you were protecting your own reputation. You didn't come here for help. You came here because you finally realized nobody else is going to bail you out. Mom crumpled the check, threw it at me. It bounced off my chest. I hope you're happy, she said, voice breaking. I hope you feel good about yourself watching your family suffer. I sleep great, actually. Full 8 hours. No guilt, no stress. We're sorry, she screamed. How many times do we have to say it? You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry it didn't work. There's a difference. My brother moved toward the door. This was a mistake. We shouldn't have come. Finally, something we agree on. Dad followed him, stopped at the door, turned back. When we lose the house, when your mother and I are living in some apartment barely making rent, that's on you. No, Dad, that's on you. You made the choices. I'm just not paying for them. You're going to regret this. The only thing I regret is not cutting you off sooner. He left. My brother followed. Mom stood there for another moment, staring at me like I was a stranger. I don't even recognize you anymore, she said. Good. The person you knew was your backup plan. I'm not that person anymore. She walked out. I closed the door behind them, picked up the crumpled check from the floor, smoothed it out, took a picture of it, saved it to my phone under receipts. My phone buzzed an hour later. Text from Mom's new number. Mom, you're making a huge mistake. We're family. Family helps family. I typed back one sentence. Me. Family doesn't frame family for felonies. I blocked the number. Then I blocked Dad's number. Then I blocked my brother's. 3 months later, my aunt called again. They lost the house, she said. They're moving into a 2-bedroom apartment in a cheaper area. Your mom's working full-time at the hospital. Your dad's doing contract work where he can find it. Okay. I thought you should know. Thanks for the update. We hung up. My brother tried adding me on social media from a new account. I blocked it. Eventually, they all stopped trying. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks. Story 2. I'm a country boy. My name is Ethan Parker. I have an associate degree in animal husbandry, and all I ever wanted was to own my own feed store and raise a family. After finishing junior college, I married my high school sweetheart, Emily Patterson. We grew up together, and she was the only girl I ever imagined myself living with. She was a beautiful brunette with a stunning figure that hadn't changed even after having 2 boys. I felt a sense of pride having her as my wife, and I was ready to go the extra mile for her. But Emily had one particular flaw. She often felt envious of those who lived luxurious lives. She avidly read the society pages in the paper and subscribed to every magazine that covered the glamorous lifestyles of the elite. When she went to the dentist's office, she would read the automobile magazines, and she was familiar with all the fancy cars. She knew all the designers and was familiar with their clothing lines. She wanted to be someone more than anything, and I wasn't able to provide that for her. I took a job in Omaha at a fancy food store that catered to the yuppie trade. This allowed us to be closer to the big city, and I can still work at what I loved. I liked my job and was good at it. I was able to give the customers special treatment, and the company rewarded my efforts by giving me flex time. Emily liked living in the city better than the country and was happy for a while when she decided to go to work. So we had to enroll the kids in daycare, but surprisingly, they adjusted well. Emily was working at Gilbert Medical, a company specializing in medical equipment like syringes and other supplies. Her job was in an office setting, and it seemed to bring her joy, dressing up and interacting with people beyond our farming community. As much as she enjoyed her work, I noticed her focus shifting away from our home life, gradually becoming more absorbed in her professional world. I ended up taking care of the boys most of the time. I would drop them off at the daycare center and pick them up after work. I fed them and usually got them ready for bed. I even made the meals and ended up cleaning the house most of the time. She did the laundry, taking care that all her clothing was ironed perfectly. We had been putting money aside every month so that down the line I would be able to buy my own feed store. Now, it seemed even with her working, we were no longer able to save anything. The daycare took some of the money, but most of it was going for trips to the beauty shop, nail salons, and expensive clothing stores. It puzzled me how we managed to have two incomes, yet save less money. Whenever I tried to address this with Emily, she grew defensive and distressed, shutting down conversations about it. Eventually, I stopped bringing it up altogether. Instead, I quietly opened a separate savings account to safeguard some money. Around this time, Emily began working extra hours and having secretive phone conversations. She became less attentive in bed. She wanted a newer and fancier car. She even talked about getting breast implants. There was no doubt in my mind that my wife was having an affair. I may be a simple country boy, but I wasn't dumb. At this point, I didn't even want to save the marriage. I just wanted to get everything straightened out and move on before it was too late. It was hard to pin anything down because I didn't associate with the people she worked with. But I was pretty sure that if something was going on, it was with somebody at work. I worked with a couple of good guys. They were not very educated, but they worked hard. My job may be their boss, but I never played the boss card. The tasks were completed seamlessly without the need for constant direction. There was a mutual understanding among everyone about the job at hand, fostering a positive atmosphere. Roy and Freddie, in particular, seemed essential for my strategy. I observed that every Wednesday, Emily dressed in her finest attire and fanciest lingerie. She seemed to take more time getting ready for work. I figured that would be a good time for me to start. I told the guys what was going on, and they arranged to take care of my deliveries and appointments that day. I parked by the entrance to the Gilbert Medical Plant parking lot. It gave me a good chance to catch up on some technical reading that I was behind on. At about 11 a.m., Emily came out and got into her car. She wasn't too hard to follow, and in a few minutes, she parked at the Holiday Inn lot. She parked at the west end of the lot, far from the office. A few minutes later, a guy pulled up in a red Corvette and parked at the east end of the lot. I didn't recognize the car, but when he got out, Emily got out of hers. They walked to an outside room on the first floor, number 117, and then they went in. He already had the key. My heart dropped, and I felt a little sick in the stomach. All I did was confirm my suspicions. I had no idea what I would do next. I chose to depart and head back to work, intending to carefully plan my next move while in the parking lot. Stepping out of the truck, I used my baling wire cutters to snip two of her valve stems, one in the front and another at the back. I was somewhat irritated, but for some reason I didn't cut a few of his. Also, the rest of the day dragged on extremely slowly. I picked up the kids after work, went home, and fixed supper. When she came in, I asked how her day was, and she said okay, except that she had a flat tire. One of the guys at work changed it for her. Nothing else was ever said about it. The next morning, I drove by the plan after dropping the boys off at the daycare. It didn't take me long to locate the red Corvette. As luck would have it, the guy had a reserved parking spot with a sign. I wrote it down. Alex Foster, distribution manager. Roy's wife also worked at Gilbert in the personnel department. By that afternoon, I knew everything there was about good old Alex. The most important thing was that he was already married. I learned he had received a reprimand for making inappropriate comments to a colleague and had encountered issues with his expense accounts. Gathering his address, phone numbers, including his cell, and even his SSN, I held on to this information without a clear plan of action. He had been married for 8 years to a woman named Amy. After a productive day's work, Roy, Freddie, and I managed to enjoy a beer before I had to head home to my kids. I still wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I was sure it would come together soon. I was trying to stay calm and logical about the situation, but I was really getting madder and madder every day. Once in a while, I found myself silently crying. I was hurt and felt like I couldn't fix myself. Having to live with Emily was getting more difficult for me. I just wanted it to end. I got another lucky break the next day when I remembered that one of my best customers, Mrs. Taylor, was the wife of the Gilbert Medical Company president. I never met him, but she and I got along great. I was being especially friendly with Mrs. Taylor, trying to figure out if I could use our relationship to my advantage. When Mrs. Taylor's daughter, Lily, came over, Lily was in her last year of vet school. Mrs. Taylor went into the barn to do some work, and Lily and I talked for about an hour. I enjoyed my time with her and felt a little guilty after I left, but it passed quickly. That weekend, I spent some time in the garage doing some welding. I took a small piece of flat steel and welded 4 sharp points to it. I made the points out of concrete nails so that they were really hard and stiff. The plate was about 6 by 6, and it was going to be my first step at getting my revenge by harassment. I saw Mrs. Taylor again on Tuesday. I was moping around a little while unloading the order. "I'm not feeling very cheerful today. What's the matter, Bill? You seem quite down," Mrs. Taylor inquired, concerned. Bill replied, "I have some personal issues today, Mrs. Taylor. I'm sorry, I might not be the best company." Mrs. Taylor suggested, "Let's grab some coffee, and you can share what's bothering you." They made their way back to the house and settled in the kitchen, which had a decor reminiscent of a restaurant with its stainless steel and granite finishes. It was like a magazine. I thought to myself, Emily would love this. Mrs. Taylor set the coffee down and just leaned forward and said, "Well, how can you help me, Bill?" "Well, I don't know, unless you tell me the problem." I really didn't want to talk to her about it, but finally decided maybe it could help my wife. Emily works at Gilbert Medical, and I think she is being coerced into having sex with one of her bosses, but I can't prove anything. Why do you think this is going on? Little things, mostly, but last week I found them both together at the Holiday Inn. My wife doesn't realize. I know, and I don't know how to bring up the subject. I don't know if this is something she is being made to feel obligated to do, or if it is something she wants to do. Our family life has deteriorated to the point where she doesn't seem to care about the children or me. She appears to be keeping it a secret, and that is what really bothers me. Who's the guy? I think his name is Alex Foster. I don't know if Emily works for him or if they work in different parts of the plant. I never met him. Do you want me to see if I can help? I paused a little and lowered my head. If you think something could be done quietly, I would be glad to try it. But I don't want to raise a big stink. Okay, let me look into it. I'll see you next Thursday with that delivery of oats. I thanked her, and as I got up to leave, I asked, "Where is Lily?" "Back at school. She'll be home this weekend. Why don't you bring the boys up so she can meet them?" Well, this turned out far better than I expected. I am sure Emily will have no problem letting me take the boys on an outing. It might be a good weekend. The next morning, it was pouring rain. Emily dressed carefully for her special day again, and I said nothing while I watched. After dropping the kids off at the daycare center, I stopped by work. The guys were all set up to cover my morning shifts for me. Roy was going to use my truck, make my deliveries in the log entries. I would initial all the entries after the times when I got back to work. Freddie brought his cousin's van to work, and I loaded a floor jack and back of it. We had fastened my steel plate to the left of the jack. We got all the trucks loaded, and after they took off for their deliveries, I left for the Holiday Inn. Right on the dot, Emily arrived and parked precisely where she had parked earlier. Alex followed shortly after, parking his car in the exact same spot he had used previously. Once they went inside the room, I waited for about 10 minutes, giving them time to make themselves comfortable. Despite the pouring rain, I braved the weather, pulling the jack out from the back of the van. With determination, I rolled it through the downpour, the water drenching me as I maneuvered towards Alex's car. I slid the jack under his engine block and jacked it up. It took only a few seconds till I heard the pop sound as the nails punctured the oil pan. I dropped it down and moved to the back of the Corvette. A few seconds later, I heard the same pops go into the fuel tank. Oil and gas were streaming out. I took the jack back to the van. The whole thing took less than a minute. I walked down to Emily's car and cut slices and 2 valve stems again. By then, I was ready to leave. I drove past Alex's car, flicked a lit cigarette out the window, and drove off. In my rearview window, I saw the flames shoot up and a few seconds later heard the explosion as I left the lot. I felt better. Emily came home from work a little late. She didn't eat any supper and went right to bed. I played with the boys a while, gave them a bath, and tucked them in. I slept on the couch that night. Emily stayed in bed the next morning while I got the boys ready for daycare. We ate breakfast and left. She didn't stir, not a word escaped her lips. I didn't inquire either. Come 9 a.m., her car was notably absent from the driveway. Once we finished loading all the trucks, an unexpected visitor arrived. Police Lieutenant John Fritz. He seemed amiable enough. Could you walk me through your work routine yesterday? He inquired. Routine deliveries, nothing out of the ordinary. Why do you ask? Is there something specific you're looking for? Can you verify your whereabouts around noon? I went into the office and got the delivery logs from the previous day. I laid them in front of him. Each stop had the location item delivered, time unloaded, and my initials. He smiled and snickered a little. That's a pretty good log. Do you guys do that every day? Would you like to see the logs for the last month? He shook his head no and smiled again. I didn't know if I should feel good or bad. Would you like to tell me what this is about? He seemed to be reluctant to go into details, but finally, he opened up. There was a car damaged yesterday at the Holiday Inn in East Omaha, and we are trying to find out if anyone knew anything about it. Why me? Well, another car that was near the damaged one had 12 stems cut. The car belonged to your wife. We were wondering if it was a coincidence or not. First off, I don't know what my wife's car was doing in the Holiday Inn parking lot. And second, what connection did she have with the damaged car? The damaged car belonged to an associate that she worked with. It seems they were in a lunch meeting with clients from a company at the hotel, and things unfolded during that time. Have you spoken to the individuals they dined with? I asked. They couldn't recall the names, came the reply. Are we going to have an honest conversation, or will we keep dancing around the details all morning? The lieutenant reclined in his chair, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Do you know a fellow named Alex Foster? Never met the man, and that is the honest truth. I believe you. He smiled again. I don't like to get in the middle of domestic disputes and hope I don't have to come see you again. Here's my card. Call me before anything else happens. Okay. He shook my hand. Sorry I had to bring this to your attention. If I can do anything to help, let me know. Okay. As he walked away, I said thanks. But you really didn't tell me anything. Put the pieces together after work. When the kids and I got home, Emily's car was in the driveway. She was dressed casually and had supper ready. She said she didn't feel well and had called in sick. She still didn't say anything about what happened the day before, so I didn't bring it up. She went to bed early, and I took care of the boys again and slept on the couch. She was up and about the next day getting ready for work. When I left with the boys for daycare after dropping them off, I went by the doctor's office and requested a check for STDs. Work was normal for a Friday when I got home. Emily was there again. After supper, I told her that I was taking the boys to spend the next day at one of my customers' farms. I asked her if she wanted to come along, knowing full well that she would find a reason to refuse. She said she had some shopping that she wanted to do, and I didn't push it any further. I didn't care if it was shopping or a date. The results were the same Saturday with Cindy, and the boys at the Gilberts Ranch were great. We spent the whole day having fun. Mrs. Taylor made a great lunch for everyone, and I didn't want it to end. Cindy loved the boys, and they seemed to like her a lot. Also, Mr. Gilbert wasn't there, so I still didn't get to meet him. Mrs. Taylor didn't say anything at all about our previous conversation, and it didn't appear that Cindy was aware of it. I hated to go home, but eventually we had to. Emily didn't ask at all about our day. She just didn't care. The boys tried several times to tell her all the things they got to do, but she tuned them out. In the end, they gave up. She did inquire once why I wasn't sharing the bed anymore. I told her it was because of work stress, how I kept tossing and turning, and I didn't want to disrupt her sleep. That was the final conversation we had about it. The following week seemed uneventful. On her birthday, I observed she hadn't made any particular arrangements, so I figured any plans for the day had been called off. That was fine with me because I had a lot of work to catch up with. I stopped in to see a divorce lawyer that I had heard about, and she gave me some handouts and brochures with lots of information. She had some fill-in-the-blank forms that looked interesting. Everything was back to normal till next Wednesday. She started off with a morning shower and then carefully did her hair. She had new black sexy underwear and a new perfume. It even looked like new shoes. I was being careful not to let her see me looking, and I rushed out with the boys. I was sure this was going to be a date day. After dropping off the boys, I went by the plant and checked his parking spot. A new Porsche Boxer was sitting in his slot. I jotted down the license number and rushed back to work. The guys were as excited as I was about the new development. We rushed all the morning deliveries and fudged the logs again. I am sure John Fritz could see through this ruse, but we did it anyhow. We had a free and long lunchtime. Roy continued with the deliveries. Freddie stopped by the swimming pool supply store and got 2 big bottles of hydrochloric acid. I want to spend lunch with John Fritz. John gave me a weird look when I walked into his office with pulled pork sandwiches, fries, and a couple of Cokes. I said hi and sat down across from him. He knew something was up and smiled from ear to ear. I said, I thought we could have lunch together and he could bring me up to date on the car damage case. I had to figure out how to keep him busy for about 2 hours. It was going to be a long lunch. While I was trying to be pleasant, Freddie was down at the Holiday Inn parking lot. He found the Boxer and carefully poured acid all over the trunk, fenders, and deck. He sliced through the convertible top and doused the leather seats and floor mats with acid. Even the dashboard received a grim dose of acid as an added touch. To top it off, he added a box of mothballs into the gas tank. The naphtha in the mothballs would wreak havoc on the engine if someone dared to start it. Any remaining acid was meticulously spread across the surface of the tires. Before he left, he snipped the valve stems on Emily's car again. It was all over within 15 minutes. The only bad part was that I didn't know how long the two of them would be in the room. John and I chatted about frivolous things for the longest time until he finally said, "What the hell are you up to?" "Just wanted to make sure I had a good alibi in case something happened to Alex Foster's car today." "What's special about today?" "The pulled pork sandwich was on special." I took out my cell phone and called the daycare center. "Hi, Carol. This is Ethan Parker. I'm going to be tied up at work this afternoon and was hoping you could call Janice and ask her to come pick up the boys." "Thanks, I really do appreciate it. You can catch her at 8743211X 117. You might have to ask for her by name. Try and call as soon as possible to make sure you catch her." "Okay, thanks again." John leaned back in his chair and snickered. Boy, those pork sandwiches tasted good. Everything was silent for a while, and finally John said, "Do you think I should call Mr. Foster and ask how his car is?" "Why would you want to do that?" "You wouldn't happen to know where I could reach him, do you?" I gave him his cell number and the number of the Holiday Inn. Room 117, pick 1. John put the phone on speakerphone and called the hotel number. After a few rings, Alex Foster answered, breathing heavily. "Hello? Who is this?" "Mr. Foster, this is Detective Fritz. I was calling to let you know that we still don't have any leads on who damaged your car." "Why are you calling here? How did you get this number?" "I'm a policeman, Mr. Foster. Did you get a new car yet?" "Yes, I did. Why do you want to know?" I replied. "Just making sure we're not facing a situation like the last time," came the response. "Is the car with you currently?" they inquired. "Yes, it's parked out in the lot," I confirmed. "Is everything all right with it?" They pressed further. "Let me take a look," I said. We could hear Alex's murmurs in the background as he peered out the window toward the parking lot. A few squawks and a low moan resonated through the room. He came back on the phone. "Something doesn't look right. I'll have to get dressed and go check. I'll call you right back." "Okay." "But Mr. Foster, why aren't you dressed now?" "None of your damn business. I have to go." They both hung up. John looked at me and smiled. "Happy?" "Of course. Look, I have to get back to work. If you have any questions, call me. Okay. Maybe we'll have lunch again next week." "I hope not. This will have to end soon before somebody gets hurt." I went back to work. Roy had the logs in shipshape condition, and Freddie had dumped the acid bottles where they wouldn't be found. Tonight at home would be interesting. Emily had picked up the boys but said nothing and went to bed early again. John came to see me the next day. He explained all the damage done to the car and that Alex's insurance was pending since the Corvette incident. The car was totaled. He was out over $60,000. Alex insisted that I had something to do with it, even after John told him that I was with him when it happened. Of course, John knew I had a part in it but couldn't prove a thing, and I don't think he wanted to. I don't know how Emily was getting her tires fixed. I never asked, and no one ever volunteered. Since Emily had never come clean about the whole situation, I decided it was time to end it all. My STD test came back. Okay. I had filled out the paperwork for the lawyer to get started on the divorce. I was planning on going out to the Gilberts ranch this weekend with the boys, just in case Cindy was there. If not, we would spend the day with March. The only loose end was that I still didn't have any proof of the extramarital sex. The weekend was good. Cindy was there. The kids were ecstatic, and we all had a great time again. We were a tight-knit family, and I found myself yearning for that bond again. The boys felt it too. Cindy remained unaware of the situation, but thankfully she didn't pry for details. As I prepared to depart, Marge gave me a comforting wink and reassured me, saying, "Things will work out." An opportunity arose for a new position, 100 miles away. It came with a promise of better pay, an improved job role, and the enticing possibility of owning a stake in the business in the coming years. It was perfect. The only bad point was that we would not be near Cindy the next Wednesday. Janice did her dress-up thing again. I don't know what her boyfriend was using for a car, but she was definitely getting ready for another visit with him. I assumed they were still going to the same place. I was going to have to do something, but I really hadn't planned ahead for it. The guys and I were trying to figure out what to do. When Marge Gilbert drove up, she motioned for me to come over and told me to get in the car. She didn't say anything, but just drove down to the plant. She parked in the back, and we went in by a private entrance straight to Mr. Gilbert's office. Marge went through the introductions, and his secretary brought us all coffee. We talked about frivolous stuff for a while. And finally I said, "Did you bring me here for a reason?" Mr. Gilbert laughed. "It is time to bring the show to a close. March has briefed me on what is going on, and I had a little in-house investigation done. As soon as everything is in place, we will get started. We should have all the information you need by the end of the day. If I do anything to embarrass you, Bill, I apologize ahead of time. It is not my intention to do anything to hurt you." We chatted a little more to kill time in March. I could see me smile when the talk turned to Cindy. I was trying not to be obvious about it, but I did a poor job. The phone rang and everyone's ears perked up. "What's going on?" "Okay, thanks for the call. You know what to do now, right?" Mr. Gilbert smiled and said, "Okay, everything is in place. We can get started. Ken and your wife are in their regular room at the Holiday Inn. Ken drove a company Benz to get there. That is against company policy. So it is being brought back to the plant right now. I'm sorry to say, but I think your wife also has a couple of flat tires. It appears to be some type of tradition." He put the phone on speaker and dialed the room. "Ken, this is Mr. Gilbert. Sorry to disturb you, but I have to discuss a very important matter with you." Ken sort of stuttered and stammered a little. "Yes, okay, no problem. How did you get this number?" "Ken, that's not important. But what is important is that the legal department was notified of a possible sexual harassment situation. It is necessary for me to get correct answers here, Ken. So listen carefully. Is there a female company employee there with you now?" There was a pause and some background conversation that we couldn't make out. "Yes, sir, there is Ken. Is she there of her own free will, or is she there because of some coercion or threatening on your part?" "No, sir, absolutely not, sir. There was no coercion of any type at all. She is here of her own free will. I didn't force her to do anything. The sex is all consensual then?" "Yes, sir. Absolutely. It's all consensual." "That's great, Ken. Thanks. That's all I needed to hear to straighten this mess out. I really appreciate your honesty on this touchy subject. We'll get a statement ready to attest to that, and we'll be all set. Now, I need to also verify it with the young lady. Will you put her on, please?" There was a flurry of background noise again that we couldn't make out. Finally, Janice came on the line. "Sir, how can I help you, Janice? Did Mr. Beecham coerce you or threaten you in any way to get to go there with him?" "No, sir. He didn't threaten me in any way. That's good to hear. Then the sex was consensual and you were not intimidated in any way. Is that correct?" There was a pause again and lots of muffled speaking. Janice came back on the line. "Yes, sir. It was consensual." "That's good to hear. When you and Ken get back to the plant, we will have the statements ready for you to sign." "Can you put Ken back on, please, sir?" "How did you know my name?" "Don't worry about it, Janice. It's not important." After Ken came back on the phone, Mr. Gilbert told him to return to the plant so they could sign the papers in the legal department. He hung up the phone and smiled. "March, why don't you take Bill out for lunch and come back in a couple of hours? The legal people should be done by then, and we can all get our lives back to normal." We had a great lunch. I had a hard time not gushing, but I just couldn't thank her enough. She finally made me agree that we would not talk about the subject or what was done, ever again. She also made me promise not to say anything at all to Cindy about it. That was a good sign. I told Marge about my new job offer, and she was glad for the boys and me. After lunch, we returned to the plant, and I picked up notarized copies of Ken and Janice's statements. They both swore that they had consensual sex outside of their marriage. The legal people assured me that that was enough for my lawyer to lock in the divorce. Ken and Janice were both fired. Their personal belongings were packed before they got there, and they were escorted out of the building. Unfortunately, neither one of them had a car. Marge gave me her car to use and said I could return it the next day. I dropped the papers off at the lawyer's. She made me several copies of each one, said I was going to send to Ken's wife. I went to the bank and closed the accounts. I paid off all the credit cards and canceled them. I called the gas, water, electric, and phone companies and arranged to have the utilities turned off on Friday afternoon. I stopped by to see John Fritz and told him I have been a good boy. He laughed. I notified the landlord I would not be staying the next month. I gave notice at work. They were glad for me, but unhappy about my leaving. Freddie followed me to the Gilbert Ranch with my truck so I could return Marge's car. It was time to pick up the boys and head home. I dreaded walking through the door. Emily's car wasn't in the driveway. She was sitting on the couch crying when we got in. This was the first time she had shown any emotion at all to file boxes of her personal stuff from work. We're sitting there. I fed the boys and turned on the TV for them. I stood by her as if to give her an opportunity to speak if she wanted to. You had to do it, didn't you? You just had to screw up everything in my life. Why the hell couldn't you just mind your own business? You had no justification to meddle in mine. I was amazed she still looked at the whole situation as if it all revolved around her. She cared nothing about the children or me. She gave no thought at all. The kids, wife, Amy, our family, our life, and our plans all meant absolutely nothing to her. Her only concern was what she was doing at the moment. Nothing else mattered. I was relieved that I wasn't going to spend the rest of my life with her. I didn't say a thing. I went up and took a shower. Later, while I was getting the boys ready for bed, she went into the bedroom and closed the door. The next day, I took the boys with me to work. I just made sure that there were no loose ends and that Roy and Freddie were able to keep up with the system I had set up. We went to some stores and collected boxes for the move. I drove by the Holiday Inn and Emily's car was gone, so I figured she had it repaired by now. Fixing flat tires must have put a big dent in her shopping budget for the last month. Emily wasn't home when we got there. We were only taking clothes and toys. I left everything else there for Emily to get rid of. Of course, she didn't know that by the next day, all the utilities would be turned off. Damn, I was a mean son of a bitch. As we were pulling out of the driveway, Emily was parking. She just stood by her car and watched us drive down the street. I took the boys to Chuck E. Cheese and we spent the night at a motel. The next morning, I took the boys to daycare. I gave Carol some cookies and party favors and told her it was the boys' last day, and I wanted them to enjoy it with their friends before I left. She took me aside. What was the deal with your wife last week? I didn't want to ask, but since you were leaving, I am dying to know. She was very upset when I called. She insisted on knowing where I got that number. And when I told her you gave it to me, she started swearing like a sailor. She didn't say anything when she picked them up, but I could tell she was really pissed. I'm sorry, Carol. I sort of set you up. Emily was having an affair. She was at the Holiday Inn with her boyfriend, and I was hoping if I got you to call and interrupt their party that she would have second thoughts about the whole thing. It didn't work. She just ended up getting mad at both of us. I am serving her with divorce papers this afternoon, and the boys and I are leaving for a new job right after I pick them up. It was a cheap shot on my part, and I apologize for getting you involved. I want to see my divorce lawyer. She had everything ready. I was getting the kids, and Emily would have visitation rights anytime she wanted. That was fine with me because I didn't think she would be interested in them anyhow. Everything else was split 50-50, but there wasn't much to speak of. There was no alimony, no child support, and no cash settlements of any type. I left her all the furniture, appliances, and household stuff. I really didn't want them. She kept her car. I didn't want it because it kept getting flat tires. All I had to do was hand the papers to Emily. Unless she contested it, everything would be final in 3 months. A copy of Ken and Janice's notarized statement was attached to the divorce paperwork. A small margin note. The lawyer Maid indicated that the statements would be kept private if all the terms of the divorce were agreed upon. There were no questions. The car was in the driveway, so I was sure she was home. I sat in the driveway for the longest time. I had loved Janice. She was the only girl I was ever close to. I figured our relationship was normal and had not even given it a thought that I was not providing what she was craving. She never let me know directly, and I was too dense to pick up all the clues. I had failed her in so many ways. What she did was deceitful on her part, but I felt some of it was because of my inattention. I knocked on the door of my own house, and it felt weird. She opened the door for me. She looked tired. She asked if I wanted anything to drink. I handed her the papers. She didn't open them. I just looked at them and back up at me. I looked at her and said, "Why?" I couldn't tell if she was mad or sad. After a few seconds, she finally opened up. He smelled like aftershave. You smelled like fertilizer. He wore Armani suits while you were jeans. He ate lobster and steaks while you ate ribs and burgers. He had a London Fog overcoat while you wore a Carhartt. He drove a nice fancy car while you drove a truck. He had manicured nails while yours were always dirty. He had a real job. And you were still just a farm boy. Is this enough for you? I can go on all day if you like. I was hoping for a life that you couldn't give me. I'm sorry that we got married, Bill. I married you for the wrong reasons. I should have realized that you would not be willing or able to give me what I really wanted. I saw you as a means of getting away from my parents and didn't think far enough ahead. I'm truly sorry for that, but I can't change the way I feel. I love my children, but I regret having them. I know that sounds terrible, but I do not seem to have a motherly instinct. I was hoping that by finding someone who could fill the empty holes in my dreams, that I would feel satisfied. But it just made me less satisfied with my present situation. I'm sorry I misled you. I am sorry. I was a poor mother to my children. I'm not sorry for chasing my dreams and looking for something better. What about his wife? What about your husband? What about your children? What about your family? Her demeanor seemed to change immediately. My questions made her mad, and she no longer appeared to be sorry for her actions. I don't give a shit about any of that stuff. It's my turn. I want to live the life I always dreamed of. A farm boy, husband, and two dirty-faced, snot-nosed kids. Don't do anything to help me get there. I got your damn papers now. Just leave so I can get on with my life. Well, that made things easy. I just turned and walked out. When I picked up the boys, Carol said to let her know if I needed her to make any more phone calls. I called the utility companies and told them not to disconnect until the end of the month. I guess I felt a little sorry for her. The divorce was final in 3 months. I never heard a thing from Janice, the lawyer said. Everything went smooth as planned. My new job was great. However, I missed out on getting a chance to buy the business. Somebody else got it, along with a quarter section of prime land attached to it. My boss said they were going to turn it into some kind of horse breeding farm. My job was safe, but my chance at owning my own place took a step back. 2 weeks later, they started construction next to the feed store. We were all trying to guess what was being built, and finally one of the guys asked the site engineer. It was a vet clinic for large animals. I thought that was interesting, but dismissed it as wishful thinking. They got the whole building up in less than 60 days. The new owner was due to show up Saturday. The boys and I went by on the way to lunch. I was a little curious. All of a sudden, both the boys started yelling, "Cindy, Cindy." There she was, looking better than ever. Marge was with her. Cindy had gotten her vet degree and wanted to raise show horses while she ran a large animal clinic. She was showing the boys around the new building while Marge and I talked. We all went to lunch together, and Cindy told us that she was also building a new house on the property so she could be close to her work. The boys and I were grinning ear to ear all the way home that night. 5 years later, Cindy was raising beautiful horses. Her clinic was a big success, and I had just opened my 6th feed store. The boys had 2 baby sisters that they adored. My mother-in-law, Marge, and Mr. Gilbert come by every weekend. I never learned what his first name was. Janice never came to visit the boys. Story 3. I kicked my pregnant girlfriend out of the house original post, so I 27 male had been together with my girlfriend 26 female for almost 8 years. Our relationship is kinda rocky since I usually have to go on a business trip to different countries once in a while. And she's admitted she hates it since she's paranoid that I might be cheating on her. She's gotten cheated on before in the past, and I, of course, reassured her many times that I wasn't even to the point. I was not drinking while on my trips, trying my best to avoid other female interaction, even calling and texting her anytime I was immediately free to text. She's also pregnant, which I assume made her paranoia even worse. Sometimes I'd even wake up to her calling me crying on the phone because I didn't answer her text within a minute. I still once again did everything to clear her suspicions about me, which made me kind of depressed, knowing that she doesn't trust me fully enough. Last week on Tuesday, I came home early from my trip to surprise her, even buying her a big patch of flowers and tickets to a movie she's been dying to see for a couple of months, as well as buying her a ring. Since I've been wanting to pop the question for a while now. When I arrived back home, I saw a car that I wasn't familiar with parked in the driveway. I assumed it was her friend's car, since one of them got her license 9 months ago. As I opened the door to the house, I heard music blasting from our bedroom. I thought this was a bit strange, since she doesn't like loud music. As they came upstairs and entered the bedroom, I saw something I thought I'd never see in a million years. My girlfriend writing some guy that I'd never seen before in my life. I'm not going to go into details about what I did, but the guy ended up leaving the house after 15 or 20 minutes afterwards. Me and my girlfriend had a shouting match. She was accusing me of all sorts of things, like how I was never around much. I rarely took her to date anymore, and that I was probably cheating on her while on my business trips, which is a total freaking lies considering I've always took her out somewhere when I came back from work, even when I was tired as hell, and her accusing me of cheating was a fucking lie, because I always showed her that I wasn't even gave her all my social media passwords because I love her. I don't know why, but I just snapped. I packed all her belongings and threw them out into the cold, rainy street, where she started screaming at me even more for doing that. My head was hurting from the amount of anger that built up at her. Screaming in my ear didn't help. Now I don't condone what I did, and of course I regret it. But I just grabbed her and threw her out into the street where I screamed at her to not come back because the locks would be changed. I slammed the door and called off work for 2 weeks due to a family emergency. All week I've done nothing but drink myself to sleep because I'm just so heartbroken. Now, for the type of comments before reading the update. 1. Stop drinking to get an STD test. 3. Get a paternity test done. 4. Move on and find your purpose. 5. Separate finances. 6. Talk to a lawyer for any loose ends. 7. Inform families. 8. Change all of your passwords. 9. When the baby is born, refuse signing the birth certificate until it's tested and confirmed to be yours also. 5. See a therapist. You don't want to get stuck into an insecure and codependent relationship. They lead to a lot of turmoil and are incredibly emotionally draining. You should never feel like you have to give out your passwords, constantly text back, or defend yourself when you aren't actually doing anything. You deserve better. Take a look into attachment theory and try to get yourself to a place where you can be securely attached in a relationship that isn't full of suspicion and lack of trust. Yes, hell yes, to this. I had a previous relationship where all of my girlfriend was the same. Always suspicious, asking for all my passwords, even reading my chats with other people. It was toxic and I was miserable. I'm so glad I didn't end up with her. That was years ago. I eventually met my wife, now much more mature, not clingy or needy, and we just trust each other. She never once asked for my passwords or tried to read my private chats and vice versa. Trust goes a long way in a relationship. Edit. Thank you everyone for the comments and private messaging me. I appreciate it a lot. I'm sorry if I can't reply to most of them, but thank you. I am currently getting therapy and have stopped drinking as of now. We'll be posting an update soon. Now for the full update. Hi everyone. Sorry for taking a while to post this update. I've been very busy due to everything. First, I'd like to start off by clearing off from things I'd noticed when reading some of the comments. Screw you to anyone who thinks I'm some sort of predator. We are both born in the same year, just different months. I was born in May and she was born in December 2nd. I'll admit I shouldn't have thrown her out into the streets. My anger doesn't excuse my behavior. And I'll admit I should have left to stay in a hotel or at my parents' for the week. For those wondering what happened between the man and the guy she was cheating on me with, he refused to leave and tried kicking me out of my house, which ultimately led to me and the guy having a fight. It only ended with my ex threatened to call the police and demanded the guy to leave, which of course ended up doing third bite to reply to the comment, saying that my story doesn't add up about the flowers, tickets, and engagement ring. I had gotten the ring a month before and had left to go to the airport as well as buying the available tickets to the movie online. The flowers I had also bought were some from a nearby supermarket in the town that I live in. If you have any more questions about this whole situation, I'd be happy to answer them. Now on to the update. If you didn't see my edit, I'm currently at the moment getting therapy because of her cheating on me and my anger as well as my drinking. I didn't realize how bad it was until that night, and her cheating on me has been a wake-up call on my end. I'd also like to say that my ex has been calling and texting me non-stop, begging for my forgiveness and that we can work things out. And she's also been trying to gaslight me into letting her back into the house, saying all sorts of things. You can't just throw your own kid and girlfriend out onto the streets. This baby is yours and you need to take full responsibly for it. All that bullshit. No way. I'm actually done. I should have called off the whole thing the minute she started acting crazy. Today she also tried to break into my house, which I, of course, immediately told the police about. And she was detained for a couple of hours until she was let go. Not sure why she didn't get arrested. Her parents have also been breeding me for kicking her out onto the streets, and she now has to live with them until she has enough money to buy a place of her own. Once again, I will wholeheartedly admit that I shouldn't have put my hands on her and thrown her out onto the streets. I know it was wrong of me, and I take full responsibility of my actions. I'm currently looking for a new house in a different town at the time being so I can get away from here. This place holds too many bad memories and I just want to escape it all. Thank you all for the nice comments and DMs I received. I'm sorry I couldn't reply to them. I'm just not in the best mindset to do so, but I appreciate them a lot. I'm sorry if this isn't the update that you guys wanted, but I just wanted to clear some things before leaving Reddit. Yes, I'll be getting a paternity test the minute that baby is born. And yes, I'm possibly looking into getting a restraining order while I'm at it, just in case she tries to pull another stunt. Once again, I'm sorry if this isn't the update you wanted to hear, but I just wanted to get some things off my chest. And I'm also sorry if this post is long, by the way, and thank you all for the people who have reached out in DMS and gave me advice and kind words. I appreciate you all a lot, and I hope God rewards you in the future. Thank you. And I love you all. If anything happens, I'll be sure to update immediately. Story 2, in my The A-hole for allowing my niece and nephew to destroy the house by not disciplining them after my sister-in-law specifically instructed me not to discipline them. My brother Casey, 32, is much older than me, 17. He's married to my sister-in-law Mandy, 36, and they have two kids, my nephew Nick, 3.5, and my niece Maya, 2. Mandy recently asked my parents if I could babysit Nick and Maya, since Mandy wanted to visit her mom and the original babysitter canceled at the last minute. I had never babysat Nick and Maya before. I honestly don't have any real experience in babysitting kids under 5, but my parents begged, and I offered to pay me, so I agreed. Babysitting Nick and Maya was a nightmare. They acted like they had never been told no or been forced to behave in their entire lives, drawing on the walls with crayons and markers, trying to flush bath toys down the toilet, throwing themselves on the floor and screaming for candy. The list goes on and on. I called Mandy, explaining what Nick and Maya were doing and that I was having them stand on the corner for a timeout. Mandy ended up coming home early, but not to deal with Nick and Maya. Instead, Mandy was angry with me and told me that I wasn't allowed to discipline them because I'm not their mother and need to learn my place. The next weekend, last Friday, Mandy begged me to babysit Nick and Maya because she said she wanted to visit her mom again and couldn't find another babysitter. My parents had me agree, and Mandy told me again that I was not allowed to discipline Nick or Maya. I'm pretty sure this is the real reason why she couldn't get an actual babysitter for Nick and Maya. Since Mandy said I couldn't discipline them, I decided to do as I was told. I watched them to make sure that they didn't try to run away from home or anything. But otherwise, Nick and Maya were left to their own devices. The house was obviously a wreck by the time Mandy got home. Mandy was furious with me and tried convincing my parents not to pay me. My parents still paid me since a deal is a deal, but they said they were disappointed in me because even though Mandy's no discipline rule was silly, I had a dozen better ways of keeping my niece and nephew occupied, using an activity like crafts or hide and seek instead of being spiteful and immature. I just let them destroy the house. Casey hasn't said anything about it, but he is kind of an absentee father, to be honest. He spends most of his time at work when he is home. He kind of just acts like the fun uncle, while Mandy does the actual parenting. I'm looking for an unbiased perspective on here. Am I the a-hole now for the type of advices? Not the whole. Maybe you could have redirected the kids, but maybe you couldn't, and you had absolutely no recourse if that happened, as it was almost certain to do. I'm pretty sure this is the real reason why she couldn't get an actual babysitter for Nick and Maya. You may be 17, but you're a sharp kid. You were very probably right. Do not babysit these kids again. Do not babysit these kids again. Just throwing it out there. Since it is family and this whole issue may blow over, etc. I would argue too, and do not babysit these kids again unless you're allowed to actually run the house and you at least get your parents to back you, especially if it's their house you'll be at. Part of renting a house with kids in it as an adult, even a young adult, is the ability to make decisions and deal what you feel is appropriate to manage certain situation. Nobody's perfect right away, but you can't be an effective babysitter for these types of kids, especially if you're essentially being treated like a kid while being expected to act like an adult, not a whole. That's all for today. If you're enjoying this story, please like the video and share your thoughts in the comments section down below. Thank you. Story 4. Family disowned me 8 years ago for what I did to my twin. After I discovered he's been sleeping with my girlfriend, now invites me to Xmas out of the blue. Then I learned why. Hey Reddit. So my family completely cut me off 8 years ago because I exposed my twin brother for sleeping with my girlfriend. Now they're blowing up my phone begging me to come to Christmas dinner. Took me a while to figure out why. Spoiler alert, it wasn't because they missed me. I'm Jake, 31 now. My twin brother is Ethan. Growing up, we looked identical, but that's where the similarities ended. I was the responsible one. He was the charismatic one. I studied. He partied. I worked. He charmed his way through life. Our parents thought he walked on water while I was just there. The setup started back when we were 23. I'd been dating this girl Amanda for 3 years. Met her freshman year of college, and she was perfect. Smart, funny, ambitious. We had plans. Real plans. Moving to Portland together after graduation. Getting engaged. The whole future mapped out. I was working full-time at an engineering firm while finishing my degree at night. Exhausted constantly, but building something real. Amanda was finishing her marketing degree and working part-time at this boutique downtown. She'd come over to my apartment most nights. We'd cook dinner together, talk about our days. Normal couple stuff. The kind of relationship where you just know this is it, you know. Ethan was doing his usual thing. No real job, living with our parents rent-free, claiming he was figuring himself out while working occasional bartending gigs. He'd always been good at talking his way into and out of situations. Parents ate it up. Mom would actually defend his unemployment by saying he was finding his passion, while I was just settling for stability. That year, Amanda started mentioning Ethan more. At first, it didn't bother me. They'd run into each other at family dinners. She'd mention funny things he said. Whatever. He was my brother. She was my girlfriend. Of course they'd interact. But then it got weird. She'd bring him up constantly. Ethan said this about her major. Ethan recommended this show. Ethan thinks she should apply to this company. I figured maybe she just wanted to bond with my family since we were getting serious. The reality hit me on a random Tuesday in March. I came home early from work. My supervisor had sent everyone home because the office AC died, and it was getting unbearable inside. I texted Amanda to see if she wanted to grab lunch, but she didn't respond. Figured she was busy at the boutique. When I got to my apartment, her car was in the parking lot. Weird, since she said she had a shift that day. I walked up the stairs to my second-floor unit, already thinking maybe she'd gotten sick and decided to rest at my place. The door was unlocked, also weird. Amanda was paranoid about locking doors. I walked in and heard sounds from my bedroom. Not sick sounds. The kind of sounds that make your stomach drop into your shoes. I stood there for probably 10 seconds trying to convince myself I was wrong. That maybe she was watching something on her phone. That there was any explanation other than the obvious one. Then I heard Ethan laugh. That specific laugh he does when he thinks he's being clever. I don't remember walking to the bedroom. Don't remember opening the door. But suddenly I was standing there, looking at my girlfriend and my twin brother in my bed. In my actual bed. The bed I'd bought with money from my first engineering bonus. Amanda screamed and grabbed the sheets. Ethan just froze, this guilty look spreading across his face like spilled water. Nobody said anything for maybe 30 seconds. Just this horrible silence where we all stared at each other. Finally, I said, "How long?" Amanda started crying. "Jake, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this to—" "How long?" Ethan sat up. "Bro, listen, we didn't plan this. It just happened. Answer the question." He looked at Amanda. She looked at the floor. Nobody wanted to say it. 6 months. Amanda finally whispered. 6 months. Half a year. While I was working 60-hour weeks trying to build our future, they'd been doing this behind my back, in my apartment, probably on days I was at work or class. I remember feeling completely calm. That weird calm you get when something so massive happens that your brain just shuts down the emotion part to deal with logistics. "Get out," I said. "Both of you. Now." Amanda started apologizing again. Ethan actually had the nerve to say we should talk about this like adults. I repeated myself. "Get out." They left. I sat on my couch for probably 3 hours, just staring at the wall. Didn't cry, didn't yell, didn't break anything. Just sat there processing the fact that the two people I trusted most in the world had spent 6 months lying to my face. Around 9 p.m., my phone started blowing up. Text after text after text. First from Amanda, "Please let me explain. I never meant to hurt you. I was confused about my feelings, and Ethan was there and it just happened. I still care about you." Then from Ethan, "Bro, I know you're mad, but you need to understand. We didn't want to hurt you. We tried to fight it, but the connection between us was too strong. These things happen." That last line made me want to throw my phone through a window. These things happen. Like they'd accidentally bumped into each other and fallen into bed. Like 6 months of deliberate lying was just some cosmic accident nobody could have prevented. I didn't respond to either of them. Instead, I called my parents. Figured they should know what their golden boy had done. "Hey, sweetie," Mom answered. "What's up?" "I need to tell you something. Ethan's been sleeping with Amanda for the past 6 months." Silence. Then, "What?" I laid it out. Everything. Finding them in my apartment. The 6 months of lying. All of it. More silence. Then Dad got on the phone. "Now, son, I'm sure there's been some kind of misunderstanding. Have you talked to Ethan about this?" "Talk to him." I walked in on them in my bed, Dad. "Well, people make mistakes. Young people especially. I'm sure if you all sit down and discuss this maturely." "Are you serious right now?" "I'm saying that family is important. More important than some girl. You and Ethan need to work this out." "Work this out?" "He betrayed me for 6 months. Don't be dramatic, Jake. These things happen in relationships. The mature thing to do is forgive and move forward." I hung up, sat there staring at my phone. My dad had just told me to get over my brother sleeping with my girlfriend, because family is important. That night, I barely slept. Kept replaying everything in my head. Every time Amanda had canceled plans. Every time Ethan had stopped by when I wasn't home. Every family dinner where they'd sat across from me, knowing what they were doing. The next day, I changed my locks. Packed up everything Amanda had left at my place into a box. drove to her apartment and left it outside her door with a note that said, "Lose my number." Then I blocked both of them on everything: phone, social media, email, complete radio silence. 2 days later, my mom called. "Jake, we need to talk about this situation with Ethan and Amanda." "There's nothing to talk about." "Yes, there is. You're not speaking to your brother. The family is very upset about this." "The family is upset? About Ethan sleeping with my girlfriend?" "About you refusing to forgive him. He made a mistake. You're being stubborn. A mistake is forgetting someone's birthday. This was 6 months of deliberate betrayal. Don't be so dramatic. Amanda wasn't even your wife. You're acting like this is some huge tragedy, when really it's just young people figuring out their feelings. Are you hearing yourself right now? I'm hearing a son who's putting his pride above his family. Ethan feels terrible about this. He's been very upset. You need to be the bigger person and forgive him, so we can all move past this." "Ethan feels terrible? Poor Ethan. Must be so hard for him." Your sarcasm isn't helping. We're having a family dinner this Sunday. You and Ethan need to work this out like adults. I'm not coming. Yes, you are. This family doesn't fall apart because of some girl. This family fell apart when my brother betrayed me and my parents decided to take his side. Tell Ethan I hope it was worth it. I hung up. Blocked mom's number 2. Sunday came and went. I didn't go to the dinner. Instead, I spent the day looking at apartments in Portland. My lease was up in 2 months, and I'd already been planning to move there with Amanda. Now I'd just go alone. Monday morning, my phone rang from a number I didn't recognize. I answered, thinking it might be work. It was Dad. He'd called from his office number. "Jake, your mother is beside herself. You missed family dinner. We need to resolve this." By resolve, you mean I need to pretend nothing happened? I mean you need to stop being selfish. Ethan is your twin brother. You shared a womb with him. That bond is more important than some temporary relationship with a girl you probably would have broken up with anyway. How did you figure that? Because you're young. First relationships rarely last. But family is forever. So I should just forget that he spent 6 months lying to me? I'm saying you need perspective. Yes, Ethan made a poor choice. But you making this into some family crisis is equally wrong. He's apologized. Amanda's apologized. The mature thing is to accept that and move forward. He hasn't apologized to me. Nobody has actually apologized to me. Because you won't talk to anyone. You're being a child about this. I'm being a child? I'm the only one acting like this was wrong. You know what your problem is, Jake? You've always been rigid. Always had to have everything your way. Life doesn't work like that. People mess up. You need to learn flexibility. And you need to learn that sleeping with your brother's girlfriend isn't a forgivable mess up. If you don't come to next Sunday's dinner and apologize to Ethan for creating this drama, you're no longer welcome at family events. Your mother and I have discussed this. We're not letting you tear this family apart with your stubbornness. The ultimatum hung in the air. Apologize to Ethan for being mad that he betrayed me, or get cut off. Then I guess I'm no longer welcome at family events. Jake, I hung up. This time I blocked Dad's work number 2. For the next week, extended family started calling. Aunts, uncles, cousins. Everyone had the same message. I was being unreasonable. Ethan had made a mistake. I needed to forgive him. Family was more important than pride. Not a single person asked how I was doing. Not one person acknowledged that what Ethan did was wrong. It was all about how I needed to get over it for the sake of family unity. My Uncle Dave actually said, "Is this really worth destroying the family over? So your brother made a mistake. Big deal. You think you're perfect?" I tried explaining it wasn't about perfection. It was about trust and betrayal, and 6 months of lying. But nobody wanted to hear it. The final straw came 3 weeks after I'd found them. My grandmother called. "Jacob, I'm very disappointed in you. Your brother made a little mistake and you're punishing the entire family for it. This isn't how I raised your father to raise his children. Grandma, Ethan slept with my girlfriend for 6 months. So? She wasn't your wife. You weren't married. They're young people with feelings. You need to grow up and stop acting like a spoiled brat." A spoiled brat? For being upset about being betrayed? Yes. Spoiled brats make everything about themselves. Ethan and Amanda have real feelings for each other. They're talking about getting serious. But you're making it impossible with your tantrum. My stomach dropped. They're getting serious? Yes. They want to date properly. But they feel guilty because of you. You need to give them your blessing so everyone can move on. Give them my blessing. Yes. Be a man about this. Tell Ethan you forgive him and you're happy for him and Amanda. Then everyone can stop walking on eggshells. I hung up without responding. Sat there in my apartment, alone, realizing my entire family had chosen Ethan's comfort over acknowledging what he'd done to me. That night, I got a group text from my extended family. The whole crew. Parents, siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents. The message was from Dad. Family meeting Sunday at 2 p.m. Everyone must attend. Jake, this is your final chance to apologize to Ethan and make this right. If you don't show up, you're choosing to remove yourself from this family. I stared at that text for probably an hour. The words, final chance to apologize, kept running through my head. Apologize. Like I'd done something wrong. I typed out a response. I'm not apologizing for being hurt by betrayal. If accepting that betrayal is the price of being in this family, then I guess I'm out. Hit send. Then I left the group chat. Within minutes, individual texts started flooding in. Mom crying about how I was choosing pride over family. Dad saying I'd regret this decision for the rest of my life. Ethan saying I was being immature and he'd expected better from me. That last one made me laugh. Ethan had expected better from me. The guy who'd spent 6 months sleeping with my girlfriend expected me to be more mature about it. I blocked everyone, every single family member who'd sent a message. Then I sat there in the silence of my apartment, realizing I'd just lost my entire family because I refused to pretend betrayal was acceptable. The next day, I called my boss and asked about the Portland office. They'd been trying to get me to transfer for months. When can you start? He asked. As soon as possible. 2 weeks later, I packed everything I owned into a U-Haul and drove to Portland. Didn't tell anyone I was leaving. Didn't say goodbye. Just left. Started my new job at an engineering firm that specialized in renewable energy systems. Found a decent one-bedroom apartment in the Pearl District with exposed brick and huge windows. Started building a completely new life from scratch. The first few months were brutal. I'd wake up sometimes forgetting what happened, reaching for my phone to call Mom before remembering. Work became my escape. Within 6 months, I got promoted to senior engineer. Within a year, I was leading my own team. I started hitting the gym every morning at 5 a.m. because it gave me somewhere to go besides sitting alone thinking. The routine helped. Wake up, gym, work, home, repeat. Around month 3, I tried dating. Met a woman named Courtney through work. We went on a few dates until she asked about my family. I gave her the short version, and she got that look people get when they think you're the problem. Well, family is important. Maybe you should reach out. That was our last date. I realized most people don't get it. They hear family estrangement and assume you're unreasonable. So I stopped mentioning it. The first Christmas was brutal. Stayed in my apartment, ordered Chinese food, fell asleep on the couch around 9 p.m. feeling empty. The second year was easier. I'd made friends by then. A guy named Ben from my gym invited me to his family's Christmas. I went, felt like an imposter, but at least I wasn't alone. By year 3, the pain had dulled to a background ache. I'd go weeks without thinking about my family. Year 4, I bought a house. Nothing huge, just a small 2-bedroom craftsman, but it was mine. Started volunteering at a community center teaching basic electrical skills to people trying to learn trades. One of them, a 19-year-old named Jordan, reminded me of myself. I started mentoring him properly. He ended up becoming one of my best friends. Year 5, I met someone serious. Nicole, a teacher. We dated for a year and a half. When I told her the full story, she just nodded. You know it's okay to still be hurt about it, right? It was 8 years ago. So, some wounds take time. We broke up eventually, because she wanted marriage and kids, and I wasn't ready. We stayed friends, though. Year 6, I started my own consulting business. By year 7, I was making enough that the Portland firm offered me a partnership track position. Regular hours, great money. I took it, bought a nice watch, celebrated alone at a fancy dinner. Felt proud. Also lonely as hell, but mostly proud. Year 8 started like any other. Then, 2 weeks before Christmas, everything changed. The texts started coming in. Numbers I didn't recognize. Messages from people whose names I barely remembered. All variations of the same thing. 8 years. And then, out of nowhere, 2 weeks ago, my phone starts blowing up. Texts from numbers I didn't recognize. Voicemails from family members I'd blocked years ago. Everyone suddenly desperate to reach me. The messages were all variations of the same thing. Hey Jake, it's been so long. We should catch up. Family's getting together for Christmas. Would love to see you there. No acknowledgement of the 8 years of silence. No apology for taking Ethan's side. Just casual, hey, let's catch up messages like nothing had happened. I ignored them all, but they kept coming. More insistent each day. Finally, one night at 11 p.m., my phone rang from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Jake? It was Mom. Her voice sounded older, tired. How did you get this number? Your cousin Danielle gave it to me. Please don't hang up. I stayed silent. We're having Christmas dinner this year. The whole family. We'd really love for you to come. Why? Because you're family. We miss you. You've had 8 years to miss me. Why now? People change, Jake. We realize now that maybe we were too hard on you back then. We'd like to make amends. Too hard on me? You forced me to choose between accepting betrayal and being disowned. I chose being disowned. What exactly has changed? We're older now, wiser. We realize family is important. Life is short. We want you there for Christmas. Something in her tone felt off. Too practiced. Too casual for someone who hadn't spoken to their son in 8 years. Is Ethan going to be there? Pause. Yes, of course. It's a family dinner. Then I'm not interested. Jake, please. We're trying to extend an olive branch here. An olive branch would have been reaching out years ago. An olive branch would have been acknowledging what Ethan did was wrong. This isn't an olive branch. This is something else. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm not stupid. You don't ignore someone for 8 years and then suddenly want them at Christmas unless you need something. So what is it? We don't need anything. We just want our son back. No, you want something. And when I figure out what it is, I'll decide whether to care. I hung up, blocked the number. The next day, more calls, more texts. Everyone in the family suddenly remembering I existed. My Aunt Janet left a voicemail saying she'd always regretted not standing up for me, and would I please give them another chance. My Uncle Ron sent a text saying he'd been thinking about me and realized how wrong they'd all been. My cousin Danielle called saying the family wasn't the same without me. All of it felt fake, rehearsed, like they'd all gotten together and decided who would say what to get me to show up. I called the one family member I'd stayed in touch with over the years. My cousin Riley, who'd moved to Seattle right after the whole mess went down, and had always thought the family's reaction was insane. Riley, what's going on? With what? The family. They're all suddenly trying to get me to come to Christmas. Long pause. Oh, yeah. I was wondering when they'd get around to calling you. You know something. Jake, I don't want to get involved. Riley, what's happening? Another pause. Then a sigh. Ethan's sick. My stomach dropped. Sick how? Kidney disease. He needs a transplant. They've been on the donor list for 8 months, but nothing's come up. And apparently none of the immediate family is a match. Everything suddenly made sense. The sudden reunion attempts. The "we've changed" speeches. The desperate phone calls. They didn't want me back. They wanted my kidney. They're really trying to get me to come to Christmas so they can ask me to donate a kidney? Not ask, ambush. They're planning to have everyone there to pressure you. Make you feel guilty about saying no. Classic family manipulation, but with medical stakes this time. I sat down. Are you serious? Dead serious. Mom told me the whole plan last week. They figured if they got you there in person, surrounded by family, you wouldn't be able to say no. Say, have they considered that maybe I don't want to give a kidney to the brother who betrayed me and the family who chose his side? They've considered that you're family, and family helps family. Their words, not mine. Even after 8 years of silence. Especially after 8 years of silence. They're desperate, Jake. Ethan's getting worse. They're pulling out every manipulation tactic they know. I thanked Riley and hung up. Sat there in my apartment, the same apartment I'd built my new life in, processing the fact that my family hadn't actually changed at all. They'd just found a new reason to need me. The texts continued, each one more desperate than the last. From Mom, please, Jake, we're a family. Families stick together. From Dad, whatever happened in the past, we can move forward. Your brother needs you. From Ethan himself, I know I messed up 8 years ago. I was young and stupid. I've grown since then. I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me. Not a single one of them mentioned the kidney. They were all dancing around it, waiting to spring the trap once I showed up. I thought about it for days. Genuinely considered whether I could forgive what happened, whether 8 years was long enough to let go of the betrayal. But every time I started to soften, I remembered sitting on my couch that night, listening to my dad tell me to get over it. Remembered my grandmother telling me to give Ethan and Amanda my blessing. Remembered every single family member who'd chosen his comfort over acknowledging my pain. And now, they wanted my kidney. Yesterday, I got a call from a number with my hometown area code. I answered. Jake, it's Ethan. His voice sounded weaker than I remembered. Tired. What do you want? I wanted to call personally, to apologize for what happened 8 years ago. I was wrong. I betrayed you in the worst possible way. I spent years trying to justify it to myself. But the truth is, I was selfish and I hurt you and I'm sorry. It sounded genuine. For a second, I almost believed him. Did the family write that speech for you? What? No, I mean it. Is this about the kidney? Silence. Then, how did you... It doesn't matter how I know. Is this about the kidney? I need your help, Jake. I'm dying. The doctors say without a transplant, I have maybe a year, maybe less. I know I don't deserve your help. I know I treated you terribly, but I'm begging you. Please. So 8 years ago, when I needed my family to acknowledge that what you did was wrong, where were you? I know. I know I messed up. If I could go back and change things, but you can't. You made your choice. The family made their choice. Now I'm making mine. So you're going to let me die because of something that happened 8 years ago? No. I'm going to live my life because 8 years ago, my family showed me exactly how much I meant to them. This isn't about revenge, Ethan. This is about self-preservation. Please, Jake. I'm your brother. Your twin. We were born together. And you destroyed that relationship when you slept with my girlfriend for 6 months and then let the family vilify me for being upset about it. You didn't just betray me once. You betrayed me repeatedly, and then you let everyone make me the bad guy for not accepting it. I was 23. I was stupid. You were old enough to know better. And every single day for 6 months, you woke up and chose to keep lying to me. That wasn't a mistake. That was a choice. So that's it? You're going to let me die? I'm not letting you do anything. You're dealing with the consequences of a medical condition that has nothing to do with me, just like I dealt with the consequences of your betrayal alone, without any family support. The family wants to make amends. We all do. If you come to Christmas, let me guess, everyone will be there. You'll make a big speech about family forgiveness. Then someone will mention the kidney situation. And suddenly, everyone will be looking at me like I'm the one hurting you. Classic manipulation. It's not manipulation, it's family. Family doesn't abandon someone for 8 years and then suddenly remember they exist when they need an organ. That's not family, that's opportunism. So you're just going to let our entire relationship end like this? Our relationship ended 8 years ago when you made your choices and the family made theirs. This is just me declining to resurrect it for medical convenience. I hung up. Blocked the number. Today, the texts have gotten more aggressive. Dad saying I'll regret this for the rest of my life. Mom saying she doesn't recognize the person I've become. Aunts and uncles saying I'm being cruel. The funny thing is, they're still not acknowledging what happened 8 years ago. Still not admitting they were wrong to take Ethan's side. They're just mad that I'm not doing what they want now. This morning, I got an email from my grandmother. The same grandmother who told me to give Ethan and Amanda my blessing. Jacob, I'm writing this because your stubbornness has gone too far. Your brother is dying. Dying. And you're letting him die because of pride. I raised your father better than this. I expected more from you. If you have any love left in your heart for this family, you'll do the right thing. Come to Christmas. Save your brother. Stop being selfish. I read it 3 times. Each time getting angrier. The right thing. After 8 years of them doing the wrong thing. I wrote back. Grandma, 8 years ago I came to you, and the rest of the family after discovering the person I trusted most in the world had betrayed me for 6 months. Instead of acknowledging that betrayal, you told me to give them my blessing. You told me I was being a spoiled brat. You told me to grow up. The entire family forced me to choose between accepting betrayal or being disowned. I chose being disowned because I have self-respect. Now, after 8 years of silence, you want me to give Ethan an organ? You want me to undergo major surgery, risk my health, and give part of my body to someone who destroyed my trust and the family who validated his actions? And you call that the right thing? The right thing would have been standing up for me 8 years ago. The right thing would have been acknowledging that what Ethan did was wrong. The right thing would have been treating me like I mattered. You didn't do any of those things. So don't lecture me about doing the right thing now. You lost that privilege when you chose Ethan's comfort over basic human decency. Do not contact me again. Hit send. Blocked her email. Hit send. Blocked her email. The next morning I got a letter. An actual physical letter, forwarded from my old address to my current one, through some cousin who apparently had been tracking me. It was from my dad. Jake, I'm writing this because I don't know what else to do. Your mother cries every night thinking about you. Your brother is dying. I know we handled things badly 8 years ago. I know we should have listened to you. I know we were wrong. But can't we move past that now? Can't we be a family again when it matters most? Ethan has maybe 6 months left without a transplant. 6 months. We've tested everyone. Nobody's a match except potentially you. You're his identical twin. The doctors say you're his best hope. Please, son. I'm begging you. Come home. Save your brother. We can work through everything else after. Just please don't let him die when you could save him. We'll do anything you want. Apologize publicly, acknowledge we were wrong, whatever it takes. Just please help him. I read it sitting at my kitchen table with my morning coffee. Read it 3 times, looking for the acknowledgement I'd needed 8 years ago. And you know what I found? Nothing sincere. Just desperation disguised as contrition. We know we were wrong isn't an apology. It's a transaction. They were willing to say the words I wanted to hear, not because they meant them, but because they needed something from me. I wrote back, mailed an actual letter because email felt too easy. Dad, you say you know you were wrong, but you don't actually say what you were wrong about. You don't acknowledge that Ethan betrayed me. You don't acknowledge that the family sided with him. You don't acknowledge that I was forced to choose between my self-respect and my family, and you made that choice necessary. You just say, we handled things badly, like you forgot to call me on my birthday or something. What you did was disown me for refusing to accept betrayal. You chose Ethan's comfort over basic decency. Every single family member backed him up. For 8 years, not one of you reached out. Not on holidays, not on my birthday, not when I bought my first house, not when I got promoted, not ever. And now you want me to undergo major surgery, risk my health, and give an organ to the person who destroyed my ability to trust anyone? Because family? The same family that showed me I meant nothing to them? You say you'll do anything I want. Here's what I want. I want those 8 years back. I want my 20s back. The years I spent rebuilding myself from nothing, while you all moved on like I never existed. I want the support I should have had when I needed it. I want a family that would have stood up for me instead of against me. Can you give me any of that? No, because you can't undo the past. You can only live with the consequences. Just like I had to live with the consequences of standing up for myself. I've built a good life here. I have people who care about me, not because we share DNA, but because they actually value me as a person. I have friends who would never ask me to tolerate betrayal for the sake of keeping peace. I have a life I'm proud of, and I'm not giving that up to rescue people who threw me away the moment I stopped being convenient. Ethan made his choices. You all made your choices. Now I'm making mine. Don't contact me again. Jake, mailed it. Felt like closing a chapter that should have closed years ago. That was 4 days ago. Since then, the messages have gotten increasingly unhinged. My Aunt Karen showed up at my workplace yesterday. Actually showed up. Security called me down to the lobby because there was a woman claiming to be my family and refusing to leave until she spoke with me. I found her in the lobby, looking older than I remembered, holding her purse like a shield. Jake, thank God. They wouldn't let me up to see you. Because I work here. This is inappropriate. I drove 6 hours to see you. Please, just 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I walked outside with her. We stood in the parking lot. Cold December air between us. Your brother is dying. I'm aware. How can you be so cold? This is Ethan, your twin. You grew up together. You were best friends. We stopped being best friends when he spent 6 months sleeping with my girlfriend and lying to my face about it. That was 8 years ago. People change. Ethan's a different person now. He's married, he has kids, he's a good father. Good for him. None of that changes what he did or how the family responded. What do you want from us? We've apologized. We've admitted we were wrong. What more can we do? Nothing. There's nothing you can do. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So you're just going to let your brother die? How will you live with yourself? The same way I've lived with myself for the past 8 years. By remembering that his consequences aren't my responsibility. You're being cruel. This isn't the Jake I knew. The Jake you knew would have given in by now. Would have accepted the guilt trip, donated the kidney, and then spent another decade being the family doormat. That Jake doesn't exist anymore. You all killed him 8 years ago when you chose Ethan over basic human decency. It's not about choosing sides. It was always about choosing sides. And you chose. Now live with it. I walked back into my building. She stood in the parking lot crying. I felt nothing. No guilt, no sadness, just this exhausting frustration that they still couldn't understand why I wouldn't help them. My boss caught me in the hallway. Everything okay? Security said there was a situation. Family thing. It's handled. The same family from... Yeah, don't worry about it. He nodded. Didn't push. That's the thing about the life I've built in Portland. People respect boundaries here. They don't assume family access means unlimited forgiveness. That night, Ethan called again. Different number. I answered because I wanted to finally say what I needed to say. Jake, please, no, stop. I'm going to talk, you're going to listen. 8 years ago, you betrayed me in the worst possible way. Not just by sleeping with Amanda, but by doing it for 6 months. That wasn't a mistake. That was a choice you made every single day. Every time you woke up, every time you saw me, every time you sat across from me at family dinners knowing what you were doing. That was deliberate. And when I found out and was devastated, instead of owning what you did, you made excuses. You said it just happened. You acted like you were the victim of uncontrollable feelings, instead of a person who made calculated choices to hurt me. But even worse than that, you let the family make me the villain. You stood there while they pressured me to forgive you, while they threatened to disown me, while they told me I was being dramatic and immature and selfish. You could have told them to stop. You could have said, Jake has every right to be hurt, and we need to respect that. But you didn't. You let them bully me into silence because it was easier for you. Because as long as they were focused on fixing me, nobody was looking at what you'd done. So no, I'm not giving you my kidney. Not because I want you to die. Not because I'm holding a grudge. But because you taught me that I can't trust you or anyone in that family to care about me when it's inconvenient. And donating an organ requires trust. It requires believing that the person you're helping would do the same for you. And we both know you wouldn't. If the situation was reversed, if I was the one dying and you were the match, you wouldn't even consider it. You'd make some excuse about your wife and kids needing you, about how you couldn't risk your health, and the family would support that decision. They'd tell me I was being selfish for even asking. But because I'm the one with the organ you need, suddenly I'm required to sacrifice my health and well-being for the greater good? That's not family. That's convenience. So I'm saying no. You'll have to find another solution. But I'm done being the family's backup plan for when things get tough. Silence on the other end. Then, I hope you can live with yourself when I'm dead. I'm living with myself just fine right now. Good luck, Ethan. I hung up, blocked the number, turned off my phone completely, sat in my living room in the house I bought with money I earned through my own hard work, looked around at the life I'd built without any help from the people who were supposed to support me. And I felt okay. Actually okay. This morning I got a Facebook message from Amanda. First time hearing from her in 8 years. Jake, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know I'm probably the last person who should be reaching out, but Ethan's dying and he needs your help. I know what we did was wrong. I've regretted it every day for 8 years. I've wanted to reach out so many times to apologize, but I figured you wouldn't want to hear from me. But now it's life or death. Can we please talk? Just the two of us? No family pressure, no guilt trips. I just want to explain some things, and maybe you'll understand why this is so important. Please? I stared at that message for a long time. Thought about responding. Thought about hearing her side of things. Wondered if maybe, possibly, there was something I was missing. Some piece of information that would make all of this make sense. Then I remembered sitting in that diner with Lucas, listening to his apology, actually believing he'd changed. Remembered the casino charge that came through an hour later. Remembered that people like this don't change. They just learn new ways to manipulate. I deleted the message, blocked her account, went to the gym, lifted weights until my arms shook, came home and made dinner. Normal Thursday night routine, because that's what tonight was going to be. Normal. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks. Story 5. My parents and brother refused to take my 11-year-old son to the ER after he broke his leg. They said, "We're busy, it's not that serious." I didn't argue, I just acted. 4 days later, they were the ones screaming. And this time, no one came rushing for them. Hey Reddit, I don't usually post on here. I just scroll, read drama, and mind my business. But things at home went so sideways, I honestly didn't know where else to drop this. I, 36 male, work corporate security for a logistics firm that moves high-value cargo, government gear, rare components, expensive tech. Think armored routes and risk maps, not mall patrol. I travel a lot. I get paid well. I plan everything 2 weeks ahead because I have to. I've also been raising my son, 11 male, Eli. His mom died in a car accident. No long story needed. He's a smart kid, never gave me problems. Keeps to himself. Good grades, decent attitude. I've kept him solid because I've had no choice but to be solid. My parents still live in the house I grew up in. My older brother Mike still lives there too. 36 years old, jobless, no rent, no bills. His main contribution to society is reselling PlayStation 5s and sending 40-minute voice notes about how the government should forgive his credit card debt. He has 2 kids he barely sees, 3 failed startups, and no driver's license because he never renewed it after a DUI in 2019. They still baby him like he's a recovering war hero. When I was 19, I was working overnight warehouse shifts and still had to pay them $400 a month in rent. Mike, he eats their food, uses their truck, and has mental fatigue anytime someone mentions employment. My parents have spent the last 15 years convincing everyone he's just misunderstood. He's sensitive. He's figuring it out. You've always been the strong one. Translation: I work, so I get punished. He mooches, so he gets a Toyota Matrix, 2002. We'll come back to that later. A few months back, my parents planned a spring break trip to Arizona. National parks, ghost towns, motels with fake Western themes. It was going to be them, Mike, Mike's kids, and Eli. I had a business assignment in Germany that same week. Can't bring Eli on site walkthroughs. So this worked out. They offered to bring him. I said yes. 3 days before they left, my mom called me. We're booking the rooms now. Mike's a little tight on cash. Can you cover his share? No apology, no soft pitch. Just the usual assumption. I said no. She didn't argue, just went, huh? And ended the call. Eli left the next morning. I helped him pack, printed his itinerary, gave him $200 for the road. I told them to take care of him. They nodded, smiled, promised they would. 4 days later, I'm in Augsburg finishing up a route inspection report. I get an email from the front desk manager at a hotel in Flagstaff. Subject line: Incident report, guest Elijah Braylock. He had gone to the front desk earlier that day to ask for ice. Could barely walk. Leg visibly swollen. Said he didn't need a doctor, just wanted to rest. The front desk staff were concerned enough to check the cameras. They sent me the footage. Eli, limping through the lobby, one shoe off, hoodie sleeve tied around his thigh. No adult with him, no one helping. He dragged himself to the elevator holding the railing like it was a lifeline. Then he disappeared into the hallway. The manager emailed me because I was listed as the emergency contact on the reservation. They also tried calling the number on file, my parents, and got voicemail. I called my mom. No answer. I called my dad. No answer. I called Mike. He picked up. Where's Eli? I asked. Hotel room, I think, he said, sounding like he was chewing something. Why? The front desk just emailed me security footage of him limping like his leg's broken. He paused. Oh, yeah. He tripped yesterday on some trail steps. Said he was good. You took him to urgent care? He said he could walk. Didn't want to kill the day. So you just left him in the room? He said he was tired. I hung up. 3 minutes later, I got a text from my dad. You made your choices, so we made ours. This is how you abandoned your brother. So we abandoned your son too. Now you both know how it feels. And I booked the next flight out of Munich. Red eye, no sleep. Just packed my laptop and badge, dumped the rest at the hotel desk, and ran. 9 hours later, I was back in the US. Still in the same shirt I'd worn on site. Drove straight from the airport to the hospital the hotel said they'd sent Eli to. One of the front desk staff had called 911 an hour after he limped back downstairs asking for Tylenol. Said he looked gray in the face. Clean break through his lower leg. They said if he'd come in 24 hours earlier, it would have just been a cast. But he'd been walking on it for over a day. Now it needed screws. I signed the surgical consent forms, paid the deposit, and waited. When he came out, he was doped up and sleepy. First thing he said was, "Sorry, I didn't want to bother you." Not one complaint. Not one question. After he got discharged, I brought him home, carried him up 2 flights, set him up on the couch. The next morning, I woke up to 27 missed calls, 11 voicemails, and a Facebook message from my mom that said, "You've changed." Damn right I have. First thing I did when Eli was stable was open my laptop and sign into the joint utility accounts. Power, internet, car insurance, phone plan, all under my name, all paid with my money. I'd been covering the household bills for years without complaint. Every month like clockwork, I paid their gas bill, their internet, even their insurance premium because Mike couldn't get coverage on his own. They thought it was automatic, like I owed it. That stopped. I closed everything. Called the insurance company, told them to remove my father and brother from the shared policy, called the cell provider, killed the extra 3 lines tied to their devices, went online and disconnected autopay from the utilities, left the accounts open, but I wasn't funding them anymore. Final step? Canceled the emergency medical card I set up for Mike last year. He had used it twice to buy prescription meds, and once to order DoorDash during a mental health weekend. I cut it off and deleted his user access. 24 hours later, the messages started. First one came from my mom. The house internet just got shut off. Did something happen with the payment? Then Mike. Can't log into the insurance site. What's going on? Then my dad. This better not be some passive-aggressive stunt. It wasn't a stunt. It was a correction. They had leaned on me for years. I had paid for their problems while they handed Mike every excuse in the book. They left my son broken and alone to prove a point. Now they could feel what it's like to go without support. 3 hours later, the power bill bounced. Gas was next. They realized what was happening real fast. My mom left a voicemail crying about being cold in her own home. My dad followed up with, "You always knew we depended on you. We're not the enemy here." Mike sent a screenshot of his empty checking account and said, "Real mature, bro. Punish everyone just because you're mad." I didn't respond. Instead, I sent one email. It was a formal notice, CC'd to my company's legal department, my HR rep, and Carter, my private counsel. It included a timeline, the trip date, the hotel incident report, the text from my dad admitting they abandoned Eli, photos from the ER, the urgent care bill. The subject line was simple: notification of personal withdrawal from financial support. In the email, I explained that I had provided voluntary assistance to immediate relatives for years. But due to a confirmed incident of custodial negligence involving my minor son, all non-essential support was terminated as of this week. I attached screenshots of all account removals and formally requested that no further financial contact be made through work, insurance, or dependent accounts. Legal cover. Full record. No room for debate. That night, they tried calling again. All three numbers. Back to back. Voicemails. Texts. Emails. Even Facebook DMs from extended relatives. Mike sent another text. "You're going nuclear over one mistake. You've got serious issues, dude." Then he tried to log into the gas account. I got the security alert instantly. Next morning, I got an email from my aunt asking if everything was okay between us. She said my mom had mentioned something about Eli getting a little banged up on the trip, and that he was fine now. They were already rewriting the story. I replied with the hotel security footage and a redacted version of the hospital intake form. Subject line, "Just banged up." No reply after that. By Thursday, Jack texted me. Said the heat was off at the house. Said my dad was trying to get a payment extension, and Mike was throwing a fit about living like a peasant. Jack also said Mike started a GoFundMe. No joke. A fundraiser. Titled, "Help My Family Recover from a Financial Hit." It was full of lies. Claimed their bank accounts were hacked. Claimed I vanished and left them stranded. Said they were dealing with a family medical crisis and needed urgent help. He even uploaded a picture of the broken heater from 2019, one I paid to replace. The whole thing had $74 in donations, from 3 people. 2 of them were fake accounts. By Friday, I got an email from a random Gmail account claiming to be my dad. "Let's handle this like men. Come sit down with us." No lawyers, no drama, just family. That same day, Carter overnighted a certified letter to their address. Formal termination of dependent financial relationship. Signed, stamped, and filed. Let me tell you what happened next. At 3:22 a.m. that night, I got a FaceTime call from Mike. Missed it. He left a voicemail. "You went too far. You just shut the power off on your parents because you didn't like one decision. You think that makes you a man? All you did was prove we can't trust you." Followed immediately by a message from my mom. "It's not too late to fix this. Please, before it gets worse." I sent one text back. "No support, no contact. You earned this." The cutoff hit them harder than I expected. Not because they couldn't survive without me, but because they never planned for a world where I'd actually walk away. They thought I'd cave like always. Thought I'd feel guilty. Show up with groceries and a payment plan. Not this time. First few days were quiet. Just cold air and weak signals coming out of that house. No updates from Eli's school about surprise pickups. No more voicemails from my mom trying to reason through a betrayal they caused. It almost felt like peace. Until Tuesday night. I got home from work around 6. Long day. We just flagged a GPS reroute glitch on a Department of Defense shipment out of Baltimore. $4 million in comms gear that almost went to the wrong depot. Had to be handled in person. I spent the whole afternoon at HQ breaking down response protocols and covering our rear end with the client. Exhausting, but normal for what I do. Pulled into my complex, parked underground, scanned my badge, and rode the elevator up. As soon as the doors opened to my floor, I heard voices. 2 of them. Mike was slouched against my front door like he owned the hallway. My dad was pacing in slow circles next to him. I didn't say anything at first. Just walked up and set my duffel on the ground. Mike saw me and lit up like I owed him something. "Finally," he said, "you've been ignoring us?" I ignored the question, pulled my keys out, and started unlocking the door. "You think it's okay to shut the heat off on your own family?" my dad asked. Is this how you handle things now?" Mike added. "Like a coward?" I opened the door and walked inside. They followed me in like I'd invited them. The second they stepped in, they started scanning the place. My apartment isn't flashy. 2-bedroom, clean layout, neutral colors. But it's well kept. High floor, secure building, quiet neighbors. Eli's room had a futon, a PC I built for him, and shelves of books. I kept his crutches by the door for easier access. The place smelled like lemon cleaner and pepperoni Hot Pockets. My dad sat down like it was still his house. We need to talk. Mike stayed standing. I've been eating saltines for 2 days. That's not my problem, I said, locking the door behind them. No? My dad said. So what? You're just done with us? After all these years? You're done with me, I said. That's what you chose. In Arizona, Mike scoffed. He tripped on some stairs. I looked at him. You left him alone, in pain, in public, and then you doubled down. You made a choice too, my dad said. You refused to support your brother. That's not how family works. I stayed standing. So, abandoning my kid was the lesson? Some kind of moral balancing act? My dad leaned forward. This is what happens when you cut off your own blood. Things spiral. Bills pile up. We lost power for 3 days. Your mom got sick. You mean she had the sniffles, I said. I paid that gas bill every winter for 10 years. She'll live. Mike walked over to the kitchen and grabbed a granola bar from the drawer. No ask, no shame. Just cracked it open and started chewing. You've got food, heat, Wi-Fi. All I'm saying is don't hoard it. You're not even supposed to be here, I said. He shrugged. You left us no choice. My dad added, you want to play games? Fine. But don't think we won't show up. You left the door open for too long. We're not going away quietly. I looked at both of them and said nothing. Then I walked into the hallway and called Eli out of his room. He limped over, crutches under both arms. He saw Mike and froze. Mike gave him a nod like they were still pals. Hey buddy, you good now? Eli didn't answer. He just looked at me. You said you'd never talk to them again, he said. I didn't invite them, I told him. They showed up. Eli stared them down. I remember what you said to me. Mike shifted. We were just stressed. Eli nodded slowly, then turned around and went back to his room. That shut them up. My dad stood, fixing his jacket. Look, we just need a little help until things stabilize. It's not about blame anymore. It's about getting back on track. I walked past him and opened the door. There is no track. You're off it. Mike stood there holding the granola wrapper. You're really going to do this? You already did it, I said. They left. No scene, no shouting. Just 2 men walking out with their pride under one arm and nothing else. I locked the door behind them and sat down. An hour later, I got a PayPal request from Mike. $600. Caption: Family bond. Declined. Next morning, my building's front desk called. Said a man matching Mike's description tried to drop off a used space heater at the lobby for my unit. Claimed I owed him a favor. They flagged him and told him to leave. He came back the next day with my dad. Tried again. This time with groceries. Told the security guard I was in need of reconciliation. Building management issued a soft trespass warning. Any more visits, and they'd get police involved. I signed the report. They sent me a PDF for records. That weekend, I got a call from Eli's school counselor. Said someone had called posing as Eli's uncle trying to get a copy of his school schedule. Mike. I drove to the school that same afternoon and filed a restricted contact form. They flagged the name, address, phone number. No contact allowed unless cleared by me in writing. I also added one more thing. Changed our emergency pickup list to just me and my buddy Aaron. Ex-military, lives 2 blocks away, has full clearance at the school. No loopholes. The next week, Jack sent me a photo from my parents' house. Front porch lights were out. The GoFundMe was gone. Mike's mental health break tweets dried up. My dad posted a photo of a candle with the caption, "Going through it." Jack said my mom started telling the extended family that something changed in me after my wife died. Classic tactic, rewrite the history, spin the blame, act like my boundaries were sudden trauma responses. They weren't. They were overdue. They thought I was bluffing. They didn't realize I'd already moved on. The day after I filed the school paperwork, I got a call from HR. Not the usual compliance check or benefits reminder. This was Nadine, our regional HR head. Calm voice, formal tone. Hey, just a heads up, she said. Someone called the general line asking if you'd been placed on leave, claimed to be your brother, wanted to verify your employment status. I let her finish, then told her everything in under 90 seconds. She paused. Understood, she said. I'll open a flag in your personnel file and alert compliance. 2 hours later, Carter sent me an email. Subject line, retaliation precaution. He'd already filed a restraining draft in case Mike escalated. That night, I found out how far they were willing to go. It started with a group text from my aunt, mom's side, always in their corner. Her message: "You're embarrassing your family. Whatever happened with Eli, it's done. He's not hurt anymore. Why are you dragging this out?" Then came my cousin Eric, who I haven't spoken to in 3 years. "Don't take your anger out on everyone. Your parents are good people. They're hurting." I didn't respond. They weren't just mad I pulled the plug. They were mad they couldn't spin it quietly. No one expected me to fight back with receipts. They wanted the shame, but none of the spotlight. So I put it all in one place. I created a Google Drive folder titled Liability Records, Braylock Family. Inside, PDF of the hotel's incident report, timestamped security footage, photos of Eli's leg post surgery, voicemail from my dad admitting what they did, screenshot of the GoFundMe Mike launched with false claims, email trail with HR and Carter everything watermarked, everything backed up. Then I sent the link to 4 people. My aunt, who called me embarrassing. My cousin, who said, "Don't take your anger out." My dad's brother, a lawyer who once offered me advice. Jack. No context, no explanation, just the link. 10 minutes later, I got this from my aunt. "This isn't what your mom told us." Exactly. Jack replied with one sentence: "They're cooked." By Friday, the family WhatsApp group, which I'd been removed from years ago, exploded. Jack screenshotted the threads for me. My mom was panicking, backpedaling in real time. "She's saying it was an accident," Jack said, "but then your dad sends that text again like it proves a point." They were eating each other alive. That weekend, I stayed home with Eli, built a new shelf for his room, upgraded his PC fans, cooked burgers on the stovetop. We watched a movie and knocked out early. Sunday night, I got another knock at the door. Not Mike, not my parents. It was Mrs. Jensen, my parents' neighbor. Late 60s, wore orthopedic shoes, and knew everyone's dirt. She handed me a brown envelope with my name written in shaky pen. "They asked me to give this to you," she said. Didn't tell me what it was. I thanked her and shut the door. Inside, a printed letter from my mom, a photo of her holding Eli as a baby, 2 gift cards, Target and Applebee's, both half-used, a flyer for family therapy sessions, with the price circled. The letter started with, "You weren't raised this way," and then rambled for 4 pages about forgiveness, misunderstanding, how Mike just needs a few more chances, and how it's not too late to reset. I shredded the letter, kept the photo, and tossed the rest. By Tuesday, Carter let me know they'd received a cease and desist counter letter from my dad's attorney friend, one I used to respect. It was thin, accused me of financial abandonment, claimed I had an unwritten obligation to assist the household based on established behavior patterns. Carter's reply was one line: no legal standing, no obligation, no contact, and a copy of my email from Chapter 2 was attached again, officially entered into record. I kept it simple from there. Next power play came when I called the property assessor. My name was still on the house title, not because I lived there, because 12 years ago I helped them avoid foreclosure and got added as a security owner. I hadn't touched it since, but I still had leverage. I called the county office and filed a lien removal transfer, basically shifting any future ownership interest from my name to a trust in Eli's name. Not immediate ownership. Just paperwork that made it legally clear I was no longer tethered to the property. Takes 3 to 4 weeks to process. But once it does, any future equity Mike was banking on? Gone. 2 days later, Mike posted another Facebook status. "It's crazy how some people would rather be legally right than morally decent." Got 3 likes, one from his burner account. Meanwhile, my dad started texting Jack. "We were just trying to show him what it felt like to be ignored. We didn't mean for the kid to get hurt. Kids bounce back. Tell him to come over. We can clear this up man to man." Jack forwarded every message to me. By then, Eli was back at school on half days. Still limping, but getting better. He wasn't asking about them anymore. Didn't even bring them up. Focused on school, his PC build, and getting through physical therapy. The last thing he said about them came that Friday when we were walking back from the clinic. We passed a family loading groceries into a car. He said, "I don't get how some people can be around their families that much." That was it. We got home, and I finally swapped out the locks. Mike had never had a copy, but I wasn't taking chances. I installed a Ring camera, updated the building security file with a photo of both my parents, and registered Eli's school address under a digital mailbox. They wouldn't find out where he was enrolled again. By the end of the week, they'd gone full Cold War. No more calls, no more letters, just subtweets and guilt quotes posted to Facebook. One of them read, "Real men don't walk away from responsibility." Another, Forgiveness is strength. Bitterness, weakness. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. They weren't talking to me. They were talking to whoever still believed them. Friday started like any other. Emails, calls, route coordination from my home setup. I was reviewing a scheduled high-risk shipment when my phone buzzed. Caller ID. Eli's school. They don't call unless something's off. The admin on the other end sounded calm, but cautious. Hi, Mr. Braylock. Just confirming. Was someone else supposed to pick up Eli today? Number Y? There was a man in a gray hoodie and sunglasses waiting by the gate this morning. He told the aide he was Eli's uncle and said he was there on your behalf. Eli told staff he didn't recognize him and went straight inside. Did the guy leave? He hung around for a few minutes, then walked off when a second staff member came out. Did you get footage? We're pulling it now. Do you want us to email it? Yes, and save it. I knew who it was. I didn't need the video to confirm, but I watched it anyway. Mike. Same gray hoodie he always wears. Hunched by the gate like he was casing the place. He looked like a knockoff version of himself, like he hadn't shaved in a week and had borrowed the sunglasses off a gas station counter. The staff handled it perfectly. No panic, no attention, just Eli walking in while the guy lingered like a loser on the sidelines. I called Carter, gave him the timestamp, forwarded the footage. He didn't say much except, that's enough for a written warning and a school no-contact order. By 4 p.m., Carter's assistant emailed a formal cease and desist to Mike's last known email, with copies sent to my parents and school admin. Subject, unlawful attempted contact with minor, Eli Braylock. 5 minutes later, Mike went live on Instagram. Title of the stream, My Brother Thinks He Owns My Kid. I don't follow him, but Jack sent me the screen recording. It was 42 minutes of incoherent whining. Mike called me abusive, controlling, and said he was just trying to give Eli a break from all the legal energy, whatever that means. He made it sound like I had my son locked in a bunker and only fed him protein bars and court filings. He told his 17 viewers that Eli needed therapeutic bonding with family and said I was going to cause irreversible emotional damage. He called Carter a lawyer cosplayer and claimed the cease and desist was fake. Then, the highlight, if they don't want to talk, maybe CPS needs to hear what really goes on behind their closed doors. That part made Jack pause the video and say, he's about to get himself arrested. I didn't post a rebuttal. I didn't threaten anything. I sent the footage to Carter and went back to work. By Monday, we had a notarized statement ready. Carter filed an official report with the city's Family Protection Unit outlining Mike's attempted school pickup, his ongoing harassment, and the implied threats made on social media. The next morning, I submitted a copy of the statement to the school with my updated emergency contact list. Me, Jack, and one coworker. That's it. I also reactivated Eli's school pickup code system. New password, new QR card. No code, no pickup. At noon, my Ring app pinged me with movement. Mike was at the front of my building. He wasn't trying to hide this time. He looked directly at the camera, held up his phone, and said, "This ends now." Then he sat down on the curb like he was waiting for an Uber. I sent the footage to Carter, who sent back one line. He's begging for a protective order. We didn't bite, yet, but we logged the visit, tagged it, and kept it on file. That night, I installed a deadbolt on my balcony door, just in case. The next day, Eli's school called again. Not about Mike, about an unverified tip. Someone had anonymously reported that Eli seemed overly tired and withdrawn, and that his father might be exhibiting controlling behavior. They couldn't legally say where the tip came from, but it didn't take a genius. The counselor asked if Eli would be okay doing a quick wellness check. I agreed. Eli talked to her for 15 minutes, answered every question. She said he was fine, sleepy because of the meds, not depressed. Said he spoke positively about our routine, and even showed her the Nintendo Switch setup I helped him build over the weekend. The report was closed the same day, but I added a home visit clause to our legal file. No one comes near my door without consequences. That evening, Mike posted another story on Instagram. This time, he didn't show his face. Just black text on a white screen. Just know this. The truth always finds light. Then, he made his account private. Jack called me that night. He's unraveling, he said. Like fully cooked. This isn't going to stop until someone puts it in writing that he's done. Carter agreed. He drafted a formal trespass notice and submitted it to the precinct tied to my building's address. If Mike came back, they wouldn't need to ask questions. Just arrest and notify. I printed the copy, taped it behind the front desk, and emailed a scan to the building manager. Eli didn't ask questions about Mike. He saw the security footage once and said, "Why was Uncle Mike there?" I told him the truth. He's trying to get attention, but he won't bother you again. Eli nodded and went back to his Switch. I didn't hear from Mike directly again for a week. Then one morning, I woke up to find a flash drive taped to my car windshield. No note, no envelope, just a USB stick stuck under the wiper blade like a parking ticket. I brought it upstairs, booted up a company burner laptop, scanned it for malware, and opened the contents. One folder, labeled Truth. Inside, grainy photos of me and Eli at a hardware store, a screenshot of my company bio from our website, a few out-of-context images from a vacation I took last year, and one document, a Google Doc printout titled Patterns of Isolation and Control, What the Court Should Know. And it was full of rants about how I was hoarding the child, emotionally freezing out family, and weaponizing finances to manipulate legacy relationships. Mike had written the whole thing in third person like he was a therapist diagnosing a patient. There were even fake footnotes. I sent it to Carter. He replied, "If this goes to court, it'll help us. But for now, document and ignore." That's exactly what I did. By the end of the week, I filed a non-emergency restraining order with Carter's help. We included every video, message, email, and school incident. We backed it with ring footage, school affidavits, and the USB doc. He hadn't just crossed the line. He'd buried it under his tantrums. And I wasn't playing defense anymore. 2 weeks after the flash drive stunt, the judge granted the temporary restraining order. Mike couldn't come within 200 feet of Eli, his school, or my building. Any breach meant arrest. Carter made sure the order was tight. No wiggle room. No misunderstandings. Mike was officially listed as a non-custodial relative with no visitation rights. The next 48 hours were quiet. No voicemails. No ring alerts. No random school tip-offs. Jack texted me, "Did they finally get it?" I said, "No, they're regrouping." That regroup came in the form of a group email. Sender, my mom, CC'd, Mike, my dad, 2 aunts, 1 uncle, and even my cousin Daryl, who hadn't spoken to me since I skipped his pyramid scheme, launch party. Subject: This has gone far enough. It was 5 paragraphs of delusion. Started with, "We understand you've been under stress," then pivoted to, "Family should come together, not threaten each other with court." She claimed the restraining order was a shocking betrayal, accused me of falsely portraying Mike as unstable, and ended with, "We demand an in-person sit-down, without lawyers, without bias." Carter read it and said, "You're not obligated to respond, but we can reply through me." Instead, I wrote one sentence, sent directly to my mom. "Actions have consequences. This is yours." That was it. That night, Mike's GoFundMe hit $103. Someone named Justice for Mike donated $50, probably himself. The next morning, I started phase 2. It wasn't dramatic, just methodical. First, I called the county clerk and submitted a notice of withdrawal for the emergency medical proxy I'd set up years ago for my dad. Back when he had surgery, and I was the only one stable enough to handle logistics. That proxy gave me financial liability. Gone now. Second, I transferred the family insurance records to a new private folder. No more shared access through the old Google Drive. They'd gotten lazy, assumed my inbox was their public storage. I wiped everything and started fresh. Third, I changed Eli's school registration, listed him under my legal name only, removed all authorized pickups except Jack and my coworker. Told the admin if anyone else showed up asking for him, call the police. Fourth, I updated the will. I'd been dragging my feet on it. Didn't want to think about worst-case scenarios. But now it was necessary. Jack came with me to the attorney's office. We notarized everything. If something ever happened to me, Eli was going to him. Not my parents. Not Mike. I left no room for loopholes. The paperwork was tight. 1 week later, I got a letter in the mail. Not an email. Not a DM. An actual letter. From my dad. It was handwritten. On yellow legal paper. Like he wanted to make it extra dramatic. "Son, you've made your point. But this is shameful. Your mother cries every night. Your brother is emotionally shattered. And you, someone we raised, have reduced us to beggars." He went on to say they were behind on mortgage payments and hinted that Mike was facing legal trouble. Said if I didn't come back to the table, the family legacy would collapse. Then he signed it with, "Do the right thing." That same day, I got a voicemail from Mike. Sounded shaky. "Bro, I know things went sideways, but I didn't mean for it to get this bad. We were just trying to teach you something. That's all. Can we meet up? Just talk?" I didn't reply, but I kept the voicemail. Carter said it was useful. Later that week, I took Eli to his physical therapy session. While we waited, he pulled out his phone and showed me a TikTok. Mike again. another live stream. He was sitting in a car ranting about toxic brothers and family traitors. This time, he said he was going to expose the truth and drop receipts. One of the receipts? A photo of the restraining order envelope on his kitchen table. Dated, stamped, undeniable. He was bragging about it, like it made him famous. I didn't call Carter this time. I called the precinct directly and asked for the domestic order unit. Sent them the footage. They already had it on record. Said they'd forward it to the DA for a harassment upgrade. Mike didn't get arrested, but he got a visit. 2 plainclothes officers, quick talk, legal warning in writing. After that, no more live streams. Meanwhile, Eli was doing better. Cast off, walking with a cane, grades steady, mood calm. One afternoon he asked, "Are they still mad?" I said, "They're not my problem anymore." He nodded and said, "Good." 3 weeks passed. Then came the final move. Mike filed a civil complaint. It wasn't serious, just noise. He claimed emotional distress, family exclusion, and intentional harm through financial manipulation. Carter handled it. We submitted evidence, timeline, footage, the voicemail where Mike admitted they were trying to teach me something. The court dismissed the complaint in 6 days. That was the last legal document I ever got from them. It's been 6 months now. No calls, no emails, no random tips to the school, no late-night curb squatting. Jack checks in every Sunday. Eli's back in school full-time. He asked to join a robotics club. I bought him a new kit. No drama, no noise. The house I grew up in, still standing. But the utilities are someone else's problem now. Mike moved out. Rumor is he's couch surfing and working on something big. My parents downsized. Sold their truck. Canceled streaming. My aunt texted me asking for a loan. I blocked the number. I'm not angry. I'm done. Story 6. My parents refused to pay a single dollar for my college and told me to stay and work at the family cafe. So I left and built my own life. Years later, they demanded $135,000 for my sister's wedding, and I gave them the exact answer they once gave me. Hey Reddit, I grew up as the backup kid in a family that only invested in my sister. So I kept my head down, built my own life from scratch, and finally got out. But just when I thought I was free, they came back with their hands out. Before we get into the mess, let me rewind to where it all started. Name's Calvin Ward. I'm 26 now, working in financial analysis at a firm in North Crest City. But this story doesn't start there. It starts in Willow Hills, the small town where I grew up in a modest 2-story house that looked like every other house on our street. My dad, Douglas, ran a neighborhood cafe. My mom, Janet, stayed home most days. And my sister, Lydia, was the family's official pride project. If you grew up with a golden child sibling, you'll understand this next part immediately. Lydia didn't just get praise. She got announcements, achievements, compliments, random moments. They all became events. Meanwhile, I learned early that my job in the family was supporting cast. My dad was the first one to make that clear. He had me doing cafe chores before I could spell half the words on the menu. Heavy boxes, deliveries, cleaning, random repairs he didn't want to do himself. If a pipe was clogged, it was suddenly a good lesson in responsibility. If chairs needed moving, he'd pat my shoulder and tell me I was built for practical work. Funny thing, once a customer tipped me $20 for running an order to their car in the rain. Dad took it, and later I found out he gave it to Lydia as reward money for doing well in school. I was 12. That was the moment I realized effort wasn't the currency in our house. Image was. Mom wasn't loud about it, but she had her own way of drawing lines. She called Lydia brilliant, gifted, our bright one. I was steady, practical, and good with my hands, which is parent code for don't aim too high. She said it in a soft voice, like she was doing me a favor by keeping my expectations in check. Family gatherings followed the same theme. We'd sit in a living room full of relatives, and the conversation would turn into what Lydia accomplished this month. I didn't mind talking. No one asked. After a while, I just stopped trying. I'd sit, listen, and file every comment away. Not because I wanted revenge or anything dramatic. I just learned that paying attention mattered more than complaining. Everyday life had its own small reminders of the ranking system. When a new phone came out, Lydia got it. I'd get her old cracked one with the battery that died in an hour. When she grew out of clothes, they became mine if they were gender neutral enough. If not, Mom picked up clearance stuff from a discount rack and called it good enough for school. None of this made me bitter at the time. Kids don't label things like that. You just live the pattern you're handed. I ate the disrespect quietly because arguing never changed anything. It only made me look dramatic or ungrateful. Two words my dad loved using whenever I pointed out the double standards. So I adjusted. I stopped expecting fairness. I stopped expecting praise. Instead, I watched. When you grow up as the backup kid, you either break or you become observant. I chose observant. I learned to track who invested in me, almost no one, and who invested in Lydia, everyone. I learned which promises were real, my grandparents, and which ones were just noise, my parents. By the time I hit high school, the pattern was so obvious that I didn't take anything personally anymore. Lydia succeeded? Great for her. I just knew none of that translated into help for me. If I wanted something, I figured I'd have to build the path myself. Looking back, that mindset ended up being the best survival tool I had. It didn't make me colder, it made me clearer. I wasn't confused about my place in that house. I wasn't waiting for an apology or a sudden moment where they'd look at me and realize I was worth the same as my sister. Lydia got into Ridgeview University in early spring of my junior year. The moment that envelope hit the mailbox, our house turned into a parade float. Janet called every relative she had ever spoken to. Douglas closed the cafe early so the family could celebrate properly. Apparently that meant Lydia picking the dinner, Lydia picking the dessert, Lydia choosing which photos got posted online with captions like, "So proud of our brilliant girl. We've saved for this since she was born." That line stuck with me. Saved since she was born. Nobody had ever said anything like that about me. Still, I assumed my turn would come. Not fanfare, just fairness. By senior year, my grades were steady. Mostly A's, a few B's, and one club I actually liked. I wasn't a prodigy, but I wasn't dead weight either. I worked the cafe shifts Douglas assigned, handled the heavy stuff without complaining, and kept my head down. Applying to college felt like the next logical step, not a wild leap. One night after dinner, I brought it up. Calm, straightforward. "Mom, Dad, I've been looking at universities. I want to apply." Janet didn't even pause. She laughed, not unkindly, just dismissively. "Calvin, sweetheart, college isn't really your lane. You're more practical." Nothing wrong with that. Douglas nodded like she'd made a profound point. "Your sister is academic. You're hands-on. The world needs both." They said it like the roles were assigned at birth and couldn't be changed. I didn't argue. I just clarified. "My grades are solid. I can get in. I want to study finance." Douglas rubbed his jaw, like the words annoyed him. "Calvin, the cafe is hitting a rough patch. Business is down. We need you here. This family can't afford to lose you right now." This was new. He'd never claimed the cafe was failing before. I waited. He leaned forward. "Let's be clear. I need someone reliable. Someone who won't run off. If you stay, I'll put you on payroll full-time. Stable work, room to grow, responsible path." Janet chimed in. "It would help all of us, honey." Then Douglas pulled out a folder, an actual folder, and slid it across the table. Inside was a long-term employment agreement with his signature already on it. 5 years. Locked schedule. No attending school out of town. "This protects you and protects us," he said. "If you sign, at least we know the cafe won't collapse. We raised you better than chasing risky ideas." It was guilt covered with family duty. Responsibility wrapped around a trap. I kept my voice even. "I'm willing to help, but I can work part-time while studying. I can come home weekends. I can adjust my hours around classes." Douglas shut that down immediately. "Not enough. You'll get distracted. The cafe needs full commitment." "All right then." I tried a different angle. "I'll do a formal loan agreement," I said. "College costs. I'll pay it back with interest. We can put it in writing. I'll sign whatever guarantees you want." Janet didn't hesitate. "No borrowing. Our family doesn't take loans on principle." That was the same principle they abandoned whenever Lydia wanted something expensive. I closed the folder, pushed it back, and said nothing else. There was no point. Their decision wasn't about the cafe, and it wasn't about practicality. It was about where they placed value. Lydia was worth investing in. I was worth using. I didn't waste a second argument. Their minds were made up. So was mine. The next afternoon, I took the bus to my grandparents' house, Franklin and Marjorie. I told them everything, not with drama, just straight facts. They listened without interrupting. When I finished, Franklin sat back, breathing slow through his nose, the way he did when he was angry, but didn't want to show it. "You want to go to college?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "And you'll work? Study? Handle it yourself?" "I will." He nodded once. "Then you're going." Over the next 2 weeks, Franklin made calls, filled out paperwork, and contacted an old friend who handled real estate. By the 3rd week, he had sold the old country place and the land attached to it. That property had been in our family for generations. He didn't treat it like a tragedy. He treated it like an investment. Me. To be honest, I felt bad about it, but I had already made up my mind that I was going to pay them back every dime they invested in me. When they handed me the deposit slip covering my first year's tuition, I didn't know how to respond. The sale covered my first year's tuition and left a modest reserve in case I needed a bridge later. Franklin just said, "Do something with it. Make it count." I never forgot that. Departure day came in August. I was 18. The bus to North Crest City left at noon. Franklin and Marjorie drove me to the station with a small box of snacks and a sweater because city weather is unpredictable. They hugged me, told me to call when I arrived, and reminded me they were proud. I looked around once, half expecting Douglas or Janet to appear. They didn't. I boarded anyway. When the bus pulled out, I didn't feel abandoned, just confirmed. I left once. No chasing, no second invitations. North Crest City wasn't glamorous, but it felt bigger than anything I'd known. I moved into student housing near campus and started my investment management major. The classes were dense, the textbooks were expensive, and the professors talked like everyone already owned a portfolio. I didn't. I had a notebook, a calculator, and the pressure of not wasting what Franklin and Marjorie sacrificed. My routine settled fast. Classes in the morning, a part-time shift at a copy shop in the afternoon, and studying until campus security reminded everyone the building was closing. Cheap food, cheap clothes, cheap everything. I kept expenses low because pride kept me from asking Douglas or Janet for a cent. They didn't offer anyway. Silence made the math easy. Breaks came and went. I didn't visit Willow Hills except for short stays with Franklin and Marjorie. They always had a room ready, even after downsizing from the old country property. We'd eat simple meals and talk about classes, not family politics. They never pushed for updates on Douglas or Janet, and I never volunteered any. Distance helped, not dramatic distance, just the quiet kind that grows when people stop showing up for you. College years passed in a cycle of work, study, and progress I could measure. My GPA climbed. I picked up internship hours wherever I could. I learned Excel inside out. I practiced mock interviews with anyone willing to spare time. None of it was glamorous, but it built leverage, slow, steady, real. Graduation hit harder than I expected. I was 22 then. Not emotional, just clear. I'd built it without shortcuts. Franklin and Marjorie came to the ceremony, sat in the front row and clapped like I'd been accepted into NASA. Douglas and Janet didn't come. They didn't call. Not even a generic congratulations. I didn't wait for one. The job hunt after graduation was rough. Companies wanted experience I didn't have, and internships counted only halfway. I sent out applications every morning and checked emails at night. Weeks went by with no replies or boilerplate rejections. I didn't take it personally. It was the market, not a judgment of me. Eventually, a small trading company called Harbor Ridge Capital said they needed someone for entry-level research. They were blunt about it. Low pay, high hours, and boring tasks. I accepted immediately. Boring wasn't a problem. Boring was stable. With the job came my first apartment on Cedar Street. The building wasn't unsafe, just worn down. Peeling paint, slow elevator, neighbors who didn't speak much. I didn't need fancy. I needed my own place, my own keys, and a door that closed. A few months into the job, I got a message from Hollis, a guy I knew from Willow Hills who floated between social circles. Nothing major, just a link to a post Lydia had made. Caption: proud of my brother for graduating. I helped guide him through applications and essays, back when he wasn't sure what he wanted. Guide me? Lydia hadn't even asked what my major was. I read it twice, not because it hurt, but because it was a new development. She wasn't attacking me. She was rewriting history around herself. A small lie, early, but a lie all the same. I didn't comment on it. Didn't call her. Didn't ask for correction. I logged it. Same as everything else. Patterns matter more than posts. About a week later, Lydia texted me directly for the first time in years. Hey! Haven't seen you in forever. Come to dinner Friday? Would love to catch up. Where? My place. Casual. Just us and mom and dad. No pressure. That no pressure was the red flag. Lydia's tone was always brightest when she wanted something. I told her I'd come. Friday night, I walked toward her neighborhood, keeping my expectations flat. Not pessimistic, just realistic. Lydia never reached out unless there was a purpose. Maybe she wanted to brag about Ridgeview. Maybe she wanted a photo for social media to match her story. Maybe she wanted something from me. I wasn't going in blind, and I wasn't going in hopeful either. The house came into view. one of those modern builds Willow Hills started adding after people from the city moved in. Lights on, silhouettes inside, conversations already happening without me. Same as childhood. As I walked up the driveway, I could see my reflection in the glass door. Calm, collected, exactly how I wanted to be. I knocked once. Lydia opened the door with a smile too bright to be casual. Calvin, finally, we've missed you. Missed me? Unlikely. But I stepped inside anyway. Inside, the living room lights were bright enough to feel staged, like a realtor was about to walk in with a group of potential buyers. Janet sat on the couch with the kind of posture that made her look permanently ready for a photo. Douglas had a drink in hand, swirling it like he was thinking about something important, even though he probably wasn't. And Bryce, Lydia's fiancé, stood near the dining table dressed like he was hosting a corporate mixer instead of a simple family dinner. Jacket pressed, shirt perfect, cuffs aligned. The man didn't crease. They were already mid-conversation without me. Standard. I wasn't surprised. They had mastered the skill of starting every event like I wasn't part of it. Grab a seat, Lydia said, guiding me toward the table with that bright, overly pleasant smile that meant she was running the show. The smile dropped the second she turned away, but she assumed I didn't notice. The moment I sat, she slid right back into whatever sentence she'd been crafting. So, she said, giving me a polite smile with an edge behind it, you're still at that trading place? Harbor Ridge Capital, I said. Right, right. Her tone made it sound like a convenience store. Must be cute. Do you get, real clients there? Or is it mostly spreadsheets? Janet laughed in that performative mother tone she reserved only for Lydia. Sweetheart, be nice. I'm sure Calvin's job is stable. Practical work is important. Douglas chimed in without looking up from his plate. If it ever falls through, the cafe's still there. We can always use reliable hands. He smirked like he'd just delivered a headline joke. Backups are valuable, Lydia giggled. Bryce offered a polite smile, the kind people give when they don't want to participate, but want to appear supportive. I stayed quiet, not out of shock. Nothing here was new. I'd heard these lines enough times to predict the rhythm. I just watched, letting them perform without my help. Janet leaned forward, lacing her fingers like she was preparing for a heart-to-heart. Where are you living again? Cedar Street? Yeah, I said. Lydia widened her eyes in exaggerated surprise. Seriously? Isn't that one of those starter neighborhoods? I drove past once. It looked tight in her mouth, translated directly to beneath us. Douglas nodded as if confirming some official report. Saw on the news that area's not exactly premium? You sure that's where you want to be? No reaction from me. Cedar Street wasn't luxurious, but it was mine. It was paid with my own work, not someone else's. They wouldn't understand that difference. Dinner kept that same rhythm. Tiny jabs disguised as casual conversation. Lydia, now on staff at Ridgeview University, talked about her job, dropping buzzwords and emphasizing responsibility like she expected applause. Every few sentences she glanced at me, checking to see whether I looked impressed. I didn't. Douglas slipped in occasional comments like, steady jobs build character, and some people aren't wired for high-pressure work. Janet asked whether I'd thought about something more stable long-term, which was her coded way of suggesting I should stop aiming upward, so Lydia's shine remained unchallenged. At one point, Lydia started explaining a project she led. It's just so fast-paced. Lots of responsibility. Not everyone can handle that kind of pressure. Janet nodded. Your brother's more suited to reliability. He's always been that way. Douglas chuckled. He'll figure it out eventually. Every comment had a message. Know where you belong. Don't reach past what we decided you're meant for. I collected each one like data points. No heat behind it, just observation. Finally, when the plates were cleared and dessert appeared, I decided I'd heard all I needed to. The script was predictable. The digs were predictable. The dynamic hadn't changed. I pushed my chair back quietly and stood. I'm heading out. Lydia blinked like she hadn't prepared for that line. What? You're leaving already? I've got enough for tonight. Douglas snorted. Always dramatic. I didn't answer. I walked toward the door. Hand on the knob, I heard footsteps behind me. Measured, deliberate. Bryce. Calvin, he said. 1 second. I turned. He stepped into the hallway with the practiced calm of someone accustomed to being listened to. He clasped his hands behind his back like this was a performance review. I just want to keep things clear, he said, voice low, smooth. Tonight wasn't meant to feel strained. I waited. The pause told him to continue. He shifted slightly, shoulders straightening. Lydia's world is structured. High expectations, certain circles, certain image. People around her need to fit that framework. He held my gaze. There was no malice in his tone, just condescension polished until it sounded polite. I respect that you're trying to build something, he added. Truly, but understand she operates on a level that requires alignment. His meaning was sharp. Know your place. I watched him for a beat, letting the silence stretch until he realized I wasn't reacting the way he expected. Noted, I said. Just that. He blinked, expecting pushback, maybe an apology or explanation. He got nothing. I opened the door. The night air was cold and steady, a clean break from the stale, staged warmth behind me. As I stepped out, Bryce called after me, softer this time. Just think about what's best for everyone. I didn't turn around. I walked down the steps, crossed the driveway, and hit the sidewalk with the same calm I'd carried all night. No anger, no sting. Just a quiet confirmation of what I already knew. Their world was built on hierarchy, and they expected me to stay exactly where they had placed me since childhood. They'd made their positions clear, and I wasn't playing that part anymore. Their emotional access ended that night. From then on, I kept contact strictly practical, logistics only, until I closed the door for good. 6 months into the job, I got a call from Talia, my friend from college. She didn't start with small talk. Cal, she said, listen, Maxwell Investment Group is opening an office here. They're hiring. I already put in a word. Maxwell wasn't just another firm. They were the kind of company people in finance talk about, with a mix of envy and fear. Getting in wasn't common. Staying in wasn't easy. When's the posting go live? I asked. It already did. Check your email. Apply tonight. And I didn't waste time. I updated my resume, cleaned it down to essentials, and printed notes from past projects. Then I spent the rest of the week running practice questions, reading reports Maxwell had published, and relearning every technical concept I hadn't touched since college. No drama, just preparation. 2 weeks later, they called me in. The interview wasn't friendly. They tested everything: markets, analysis, risk modeling, real portfolio scenarios. They asked for examples of pressure situations. I kept my answers short, direct, not trying to sound impressive, just factual. When the interview ended, the lead manager nodded once. We'll be in touch. They emailed me 3 days later. Offer extended. Harbor Ridge's office manager looked confused when I turned in my notice. You sure? She asked. It's stable here. I know, I said. That's why I have to go. I had been there about half a year. Maxwell started me as an associate analyst. The base pay jump wasn't dramatic, but the bonus structure was. And the opportunity mattered. My first year there was simple. Work, learn, deliver. I stayed late because I wanted to finish what others didn't. Not to impress anyone, just to stack results. When a project needed someone to handle data cleanup at midnight, I took it. When a senior analyst needed a presentation polished before a client meeting, I did it. When nobody wanted to take on a struggling portfolio from a small tech firm, I volunteered. That last one changed things. The account wasn't high profile. The company was mid-sized, local, and had hit rough patches. Their returns were flat, bordering on negative. People saw it as a dead-end project. I saw it as a chance to make something move. For 3 months, I tracked the company's performance, their sector trends, competitor data, and market cycles. I reorganized their asset mix, balanced their risk exposure, and ran simulations until the patterns made sense. When the quarter closed, the portfolio posted a strong return, far above projections. My supervisor called me into his office with the numbers on his screen. This, he said, tapping the report, is exceptional. From there, things shifted. Analysts started asking me for help on their models. Managers pulled me into meetings I wasn't originally listed for. My name made it into the email chains that mattered. Not from charm, just math. Results move people faster than personality. The bonuses started small, then grew. I didn't spend them on anything flashy. I saved. I planned. I treated money like fuel, not decoration. After a year and a half at Maxwell, I had enough saved to do something I'd wanted to do since college. I bought Franklin a car. Not a sports car or anything ridiculous, just a clean, reliable, well-kept sedan with good mileage and safety features. He didn't say much when I handed him the keys. He just nodded once, the way he did when something hit deeper than he wanted to show. Marjorie hugged me so tightly it nearly cracked a rib. Once that was done, I focused on my next move. Housing. Maxwell's pay plus bonuses plus controlled spending gave me the leverage for something bigger. I'd never cared about image, but I cared about stability. I cared about having a place nobody could talk down at. So I bought a penthouse in the Heights, the new development in Northcrest City with clean lines, tall windows, and keycard elevators that actually worked. It wasn't about showing off. It was about creating a version of my life that didn't depend on anyone's opinion. Between two strong bonus cycles, a pre-construction discount, and a conservative mortgage, the numbers worked. Moving in felt like a finish line and a starting line at the same time. One morning, about a week after I moved, I was heading down to the lobby with a travel mug in hand when I heard a familiar voice behind me. Calvin. I turned. Lydia stood there in the lobby's marble entryway, gym bag over her shoulder. Turns out she'd moved into a lower floor 2 weeks earlier. What are you doing here? She asked. I live here, I said. Her eyes moved from me to the elevator, then to the penthouse button. Here? The Heights? Yeah. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something impressive or cutting, but nothing came out. For the first time I could remember, Lydia had no script prepared. I nodded once. Have a good day. Then I walked past her, calm, no flex, not interested in whatever expression she was trying to form. As the elevator doors closed, I caught a final glimpse of her still standing there, processing. My life wasn't perfect, but it was solid. Solid enough that nobody could talk me down anymore. And I built it that way on purpose. The first sign something was shifting came online. I wasn't following Lydia, but Hollis sent screenshots. A picture of Lydia smiling next to an old photo of us as kids. So proud of my brother Calvin. We always believed in him. Strong family values built his success. Another post the next day. Family support makes all the difference. She timed them perfectly, right as wedding season posts began appearing on her feed. I didn't comment, didn't message her, didn't correct anything. It was obvious what she was doing, laying groundwork for an upcoming ask. People who plan leverage care a lot about public perception before they cash in. I kept scrolling and went back to my day. 2 weeks later, I got a text from Lydia. Mom and Dad want to see your new place. We'll stop by tomorrow? Not a question. A statement. They arrived right on time. Janet stood in the doorway staring at the penthouse ceiling like she'd walked into a museum. Douglas kept nodding to himself as if approving an inspection. I let them in out of courtesy, not connection. Boundaries stayed up. Calvin, Janet said, brushing a countertop with her hand. This is impressive. Douglas added, very impressive. You've done well. Polite, warm, completely out of character. Lydia slipped in behind them with a bright, purposeful smile. We were actually hoping to talk about something important. There it was. They sat down like they were about to negotiate a merger. Janet started. As you know, Lydia and Bryce's wedding is coming up. It's a significant event for both families. Douglas nodded. Their venue, the planner, the arrangements, everything has to match Bryce's family's expectations. Then Lydia delivered the figure like she was reading from a brochure. The total cost is around $300,000. Mom and Dad agreed to cover half. It sounded outrageous for Willow Hills, but the venue and vendors were in Northcrest City, and Bryce's parents insisted on imported everything. That is how you reach $300,000 in a hurry. Janet jumped in. Before we knew the final numbers. Douglas sighed. A bit higher than anticipated. Then Lydia leaned forward. So we were hoping you could help. Just $150,000. As a loan. We'll pay it back. I didn't say anything for a few seconds. They all waited. Then I asked, a loan, right? With an agreement? Douglas nodded. Of course. And you'll pay it back? Janet folded her hands. Naturally. I leaned back. Interesting, because when I asked for a loan for college, you said our family doesn't borrow money on principle. Silence. Janet blinked. That was different. It wasn't. Douglas cleared his throat. We're talking about family reputation here. And I was talking about education. More silence. I kept my voice even. You have a principle. I'm using it. Same rule. No. Lydia stared at me like she'd heard the wrong sentence. Janet swallowed hard. Calvin, be reasonable. I am. Douglas stood up halfway. Think of what this means for the family. I cut him off with a small hand gesture. This conversation is finished. No yelling, no heat, just policy. They left with stiff smiles. Lydia didn't look back. 2 days later, Janet texted me. Honey, can you send a little help? Just a few thousand. We're short on a bill. No. After everything we've done for you? Calvin, please. No. She tried a voice message after that. I didn't play it. A week passed. Then I ran into Douglas at the grocery store. I was carrying a bag of produce when he stepped into my path like he'd been waiting. He didn't greet me. He just raised his voice enough for nearby carts to hear. I raised you, Calvin. A son takes care of his parents when they need him. People turned to look. Douglas watched me, waiting for me to defend myself or shrink. I didn't do either. I'm not discussing this here, I said. Then I walked past him. No speed, no anger, just forward. He stayed frozen behind me, caught in the attention he'd tried to weaponize. Later that evening, my phone lit up with Lydia's name. I answered on speaker while reviewing a report. Her voice hit immediately. "What is wrong with you?" "Define wrong," I said. "You embarrassed Mom. You humiliated Dad. They told you about the wedding. You have the money. You're just being petty because of high school stuff." "Incorrect. You could help us. You just don't want to. That's selfish." I didn't reply. She kept going. "Bryce's family expects a standard. We can't just show up looking like we're cheap." I waited. I wanted the core ask to surface. There it was. "You're ruining everything," she snapped. "Good night, Lydia." I hung up. The next morning, she sent an email. A full breakdown of wedding costs. Color-coded, labeled non-negotiable. I opened it during lunch. The numbers were absurd. $20,000 for themed floral arches, $10,000 for a family photo wall experience, $15,000 for imported table settings, $8,000 for a curated scent environment, $12,000 for custom invitations, and so on. Line after line of inflated nonsense. She added a note at the bottom. "This is why we need you to contribute. These are fixed. Please understand." I read it like a stranger invoice from a company I didn't hire. Then I closed the email. A pressure campaign only works if the target bends. I wasn't bending. I held the line. Calm, straight, final. My rage stayed policy. Sunday dinners with Franklin and Marjorie had become routine. Their smaller house always smelled like roasted vegetables and something cooling on the counter. No tension, no scripts, no sideways comments. Just a meal and two people who meant what they said. That weekend, Marjorie set extra napkins on the table and said, "Your parents called us yesterday." I raised an eyebrow. "What for?" Franklin answered before she could. "Money." Marjorie shook her head. They were talking circles around themselves, claiming they're under strain, that they're expected to contribute a large portion for Lydia's wedding, and it would be a tragedy to fall short. Franklin poured water into our glasses. "Then your mother suggested we sell the car you bought me." His jaw tightened. "Said it was just sitting in our driveway." I blinked once. "She said that out loud?" "She did," Marjorie confirmed. Franklin set the pitcher down with a controlled thud. "Told her no. Told her if she brought it up again, the call would end. She brought it up again, so I ended it." That was Franklin in a sentence. Calm until someone crossed a line, and then unmovable. Marjorie sighed. "They're desperate for money and approval. They don't care where it comes from." I didn't reply. There wasn't much to say. They'd pushed every angle they had with me. Moving on to my grandparents was predictable. Over the next week, gossip spread around Willow Hills. Small towns don't need accuracy to stay loud. Someone claimed I refused to help the family in a crisis. Someone else said I'd abandoned my parents after becoming rich. Apparently, I'd even cut Lydia out of my life because I was jealous. None of it was surprising. I didn't defend myself. I didn't call anyone. I didn't post long explanations online. Explaining yourself to people who already picked a side is a waste of time. Then Kyle showed up. I ran into him in the parking lot of a hardware store. He started with a smile that didn't fit the situation. "Man, everyone's talking about you," he said. "Saw your parents the other day. They seemed torn up." I waited. Kyle loved building up to his point. "Look," he said, shifting his weight. "I get it. You're hurt. But maybe you should see their side." "Which side is that?" I asked. "They raised you, and they're struggling. You're doing well now. You could be the bigger man. You only get one family." I nodded once. "Right." He brightened, thinking I agreed. Then I added, "Nobody told them to be bigger parents." Kyle froze. The sentence landed exactly where it needed to. I stepped around him and kept walking. He didn't follow. 2 days before the wedding, Lydia came to my building. Not the lobby, my door. She knocked lightly, the way people do when they're trying to sound gentle. When I opened the door, she put on a practiced smile. "Cal," she said softly, "can we talk?" I leaned against the doorframe. "Say what you need." She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "I don't want us to be like this. We're siblings. We should support each other." There it was, the peace opener. She sat on my couch like it belonged to her. "The wedding is important, Cal. Not just for me, for Mom and Dad. They've tried so hard, and they're embarrassed. Bryce's family has expectations. We can't show up looking small." Then she shifted tone, exactly as expected. "If you could help, even a portion, it would change everything. You know we'd pay you back." I looked at her calmly. "No." She blinked fast. "You didn't even think about it." "I did. The answer's still no." She stood abruptly. "So that's it? You'd rather let your parents look poor? They created the situation. They can handle the outcome." Her voice cracked into anger. You're unbelievable. You act above everyone now. I'm not above anyone. I'm just not available. She stared at me for a long second, waiting for something. An apology. A crack. Anything. I didn't give her one. Goodbye, Lydia, I said. She stormed out. That evening, Talia texted me. Talia, not sure if you care, but FYI, your parents finally told Bryce's family they can't pay their half. Talia, his parents were not happy. They're cutting costs everywhere. Looks like the wedding's getting downgraded hard. She added, You made the right choice. Just thought you should know. The wedding happened that weekend. I wasn't invited. No surprise. Franklin and Marjorie got an invitation but declined. We have plans with our grandson, Franklin told them. Our plans were simple. A long walk, lunch on a patio, and a quiet afternoon watching an old movie on their tiny living room TV. It was more genuine than anything happening across town. 2 days after the wedding, my phone lit up with a message from Janet. Miss you. Come by sometime. No punctuation. No acknowledgement of the last few months. No mention of the money demands, the guilt, the pressure, or the public show at the grocery store. Just a casual reset, like everything had been a misunderstanding, and all I needed to do was play along. I stared at the message for a moment. Not angry, not tempted. Then I locked my phone and went back to my day. No response, no argument, no return. Some people think closure comes from conversations. Mine came from consistency. No contact isn't revenge. It's maintenance. From that last text onward, no contact. They made their choices. I made mine. And I finally had the peace to keep them separate. You've been reading this like a story, but let's make it real for a second. If you were me, if your parents laughed at your goals, refused to help you when you needed them, tried to trap you in a low-ceiling life, mocked your progress, disrespected your work, rewrote your achievements, then only showed up again when there was money involved, what would you honestly do? Would you forgive them? Should I? If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.